They thought pressure would break me. It revealed who I really am. Everyone tells you to be patient. Nobody explains how. Most of us are rushing through life, tapping our feet in every line, refreshing our emails every 30 seconds, forcing timelines that aren't meant to be forced. For years, I thought patience meant sitting still and suffering through the wait, gritting your teeth, white-knuckling through delays. Then I discovered something profound. Patience isn't passive. It's active trust. It's doing your part, then letting life do its part. Here's what impatience actually creates: anxiety that never stops, relationships that crash from being rushed, opportunities destroyed by grabbing too early, and a constant feeling of being behind, even when you're ahead. But here's what nobody tells you about impatience. It's not actually about wanting things to happen faster. It's about not trusting that they'll happen at all. Think about it. When you trust someone completely, you don't panic when they're 5 minutes late. You know they're coming. When you trust the process, you don't force outcomes. You know they're developing. Impatience is just fear wearing a productivity mask. There's an ancient teaching about this that changed everything for me. It says that prayer, and by extension, any meaningful endeavor, is like planting a seed. The farmer buries valuable grain in the earth where it could be destroyed by animals, rot from moisture, or fail in countless ways. But experience teaches the farmer to trust. The seed undergoes its transformation underground, invisible to everyone, even to the farmer who planted it. An ignorant child wants to dig it up to check if it's growing. But every time you dig up a seed to verify its progress, you kill it. Every time you force what needs time, you destroy it. The hardest work happens underground, in the dark, where nobody can see it. This ancient wisdom says that those who are hasty get tired quickly and give up, while those who are steadfast persevere and arrive at their objective. There's progression in divine works. It never happens that someone marries today and a child is born tomorrow morning. Though the Creator is all-powerful, compliance with natural law and divine timing is necessary. This teaching completely transformed how I understand patience, not as waiting, but as trusting, not as suffering, but as allowing, not as weakness, but as the ultimate strength. Let me tell you what real patience looks like. It's not the person sitting quietly in the corner. It's the person who plants seeds knowing they won't see shade from that tree for 20 years. It's the parent teaching their child the same lesson for the 100th time without losing their composure. It's continuing to show up when there's no applause, no recognition, no immediate reward. Real patience has movement in it. It has faith in it. It has work in it. Most people think patience is about time. It's not. It's about trust. When you truly trust the process, waiting becomes irrelevant. You're not waiting. You're participating in becoming. Let me break this down with how patience actually works in practice. When a project takes longer than expected, weeks turning into months, our instinct is to force it, rush it, push through with sheer willpower. But remember the ancient teaching about seeds. Remember that forcing creates resistance. What if we worked with the same intensity, but released the timeline, focused on the quality of effort, not the speed of result? Something interesting happens. The delay isn't a delay at all. It's preparation time we didn't know we needed. During those extra weeks, things emerge that completely change the direction for the better. If we force the original timeline, we miss what's trying to emerge. This is what patience really is. It's wisdom about timing. It's understanding that everything has a season, and fighting the season is like fighting gravity, exhausting and pointless. Here's the thing about patience that nobody talks about. It's not natural. We're wired for instant gratification. Our ancestors who grabbed food quickly survived. The ones who hesitated might have starved. So impatience is literally in our DNA. But here's where it gets interesting. The same wiring that saved us in survival situations is killing us in modern life. Because most of what matters today, relationships, careers, personal growth, spiritual development, requires the exact opposite of grabbing quickly. It requires cultivation, and cultivation takes time. Think about the best things in your life right now, your deepest friendships, your most meaningful achievements, your greatest insights. Did any of them happen instantly, or did they develop slowly, invisibly, underground, until one day they emerged fully formed? I'm guessing it's the second one, because that's how reality works. Quick things are usually shallow. Deep things take time. But we live in a world that worships speed, instant messages, same-day delivery, fast food, quick fixes. We've been programmed to believe that faster is better, that waiting is wasting. Here's the truth. Waiting is creating. Every moment you wait with intention, something is being built. Every second you resist the urge to force, strength is being developed. Every time you choose patience over panic, you are literally rewiring your brain for peace. Scientists have studied this. People who practice patience have lower stress hormones, better immune systems, stronger relationships, and, here's the kicker, they actually achieve more in the long run than the rushers. Why? Because patience allows for compound growth. Impatience forces linear progress. Let me explain what I mean. When you rush, you can only build on what's immediately available. You grab the first option, the quick solution, the surface-level answer. You're moving fast, but shallow. When you're patient, you allow things to connect, to deepen, to multiply. You're not just adding, you're compounding, like interest in a bank account. The patient person who invests and waits beats the impatient person who keeps withdrawing every time there's a small gain. This lesson applies powerfully to relationships. When we rush into intimacy, trying to know everything on the first encounter, trying to be everything in the first month, trying to build a lifetime in the first year, relationships crash and burn. But when we practice relational patience, taking time to really know someone, letting trust build naturally, allowing connection to deepen organically, not forcing conversations or rushing milestones, something profound happens. The relationships built on impatience last months. The ones built with patience can grow for years. Same energy, completely different results. The only variable is patience. But here's what makes patience so hard in our culture. We mistake movement for progress. We think if we're not constantly doing, pushing, forcing, we're falling behind. We've confused being busy with being productive. We've confused speed with success. Real success is about right timing, not fast timing. Here's something I've come to understand. Everything has an appointed time. A time to plant and a time to harvest. A time to speak and a time to be silent. A time to push and a time to release. Patience is simply the wisdom to recognize which time you're in. Most of our frustration comes from trying to harvest in planting season, or trying to plant in harvest season. We're out of rhythm with reality, fighting the current instead of flowing with it. Let me tell you about the 3 levels of patience I've discovered, each one deeper than the last, each one more powerful. Level 1 is physical patience. This is waiting in line without losing your mind, sitting in traffic without honking, dealing with delays without exploding. It's the most basic level, but even this is revolutionary in our impatient world. I started here. Simple practices. When I hit a red light, instead of cursing, I'd take 3 deep breaths. When someone was moving slowly in front of me, instead of pushing past, I'd observe my impatience without acting on it. When technology failed, instead of rage, I'd pause. These seem small, but they're not. Every time you choose patience over reaction, you're building a muscle. You're literally changing your neural pathways. You're becoming someone who responds rather than reacts. After a few weeks of this physical patience practice, something shifted. I noticed I had more energy. Why? Because impatience is exhausting. All that pushing, forcing, resisting, it drains you. Patience conserves energy. It's like the difference between driving with the brakes on versus driving smoothly. Level 2 is emotional patience. This is harder. This is waiting for emotional resolution without forcing it. Letting yourself feel without rushing to fix, allowing others their emotional process without trying to speed it up. I discovered this level during a particularly difficult period. Someone I cared about was going through grief. The old me would have tried to fix it, rush them through it, find solutions, but grief doesn't work that way. Healing doesn't work that way. So I learned to sit with discomfort, to be present without pushing, to hold space without filling it. This kind of patience, it's almost sacred. It honors the process. It respects the journey. Emotional patience taught me that not everything needs to be solved. Some things need to be experienced. Some things need to be felt fully before they can transform. Think about your own emotional life. How often do you try to rush through uncomfortable feelings? How often do you force yourself to get over it or move on before you're ready? That's emotional impatience, and it always backfires. Because emotions don't follow timelines, they follow their own intelligence. When you're emotionally patient, you stop fighting your feelings. You stop judging your process. You stop comparing your healing to others. You simply allow what is, knowing it will transform when it's ready. Level 3 is spiritual patience. This is the deepest level. This is trusting the divine timing of your entire life. Trusting that everything, every delay, every setback, every closed door is perfectly orchestrated for your growth. This isn't passive acceptance. It's active trust. It's doing your absolute best while releasing attachment to timing. It's planting seeds while trusting the season. It's showing up fully while surrendering the outcome. Spiritual patience changed everything for me. It ended the constant anxiety of, am I behind? It stopped the comparison game of, they're ahead of me. It dissolved the fear of, what if it never happens? Because spiritual patience knows a secret. You cannot miss what's meant for you. You cannot be late to your own life. You cannot fail your purpose. Everything that's yours is coming. Not on your timeline, but on the perfect timeline. Not when you think you're ready, but when you actually are. I want to share something vulnerable about how the body teaches patience. When illness or injury forces us to slow down, not by choice, but by necessity, the body literally won't let us rush anymore. At first, we fight it, try to maintain the old pace, try to push through, but fighting makes it worse. The more we resist the slowdown, the more the body rebels. When we finally surrender and accept the pace our body is setting, when we stop trying to keep up with our old life and start living at the speed of our actual capacity, that's when something magical happens. In the slowness, we start noticing things we'd been missing for years. The way morning light moves across a wall, the expression on someone's face when they're really listening, the small kindnesses happening everywhere all the time. In forced patience, we discover presence. In unwanted waiting, we find peace. What seems like a curse becomes a teacher. It teaches that life isn't a race to be won, but an experience to be lived fully, presently, patiently. The interesting paradox? Once we stop fighting the slowness, healing often accelerates. The patience itself becomes medicine. The acceptance becomes transformation. This is the paradox of patience. When you stop pushing for change, change happens. When you stop forcing growth, growth occurs. When you stop demanding answers, answers appear. But they appear in their own time, in their own way, usually different and better than what you were pushing for. Let's talk about the patience required in relationships. This might be the hardest kind because it involves another person's timeline, not just your own. Every relationship has two timelines running simultaneously. yours and theirs, your readiness and their readiness, your healing and their healing, your growth and their growth. Impatience in relationships looks like pushing someone to commit before they're ready, or pushing yourself to forgive before you've processed the hurt, or expecting someone to understand something they're not yet capable of understanding. I see this constantly. People ending good relationships because they're not progressing fast enough. People forcing conversations that need more time to ripen. People demanding changes that require seasons to develop. Here's what I've learned. Relational patience isn't about waiting for someone to change. It's about loving someone through their process while honoring your own. Sometimes patience means staying and working through difficulty. Sometimes patience means leaving and allowing distance to do its work. Patience isn't always about waiting. Sometimes it's about knowing when to act and when to be still. Consider a friendship that's struggling. You've grown apart, developed different values, started moving in different directions. The impatient response is to either force a dramatic ending or force things back together. Instead, practice patience. Don't force a conversation. Don't create drama. Don't demand closure. Simply allow the natural distance to happen while keeping your heart open. Years might pass. Then one day, you run into each other, and in that moment, with years of growth between you, the conversation that couldn't have happened earlier happens naturally. A new foundation for friendship emerges that honors who you've both become. If you had forced it earlier, it would have ended badly. The patience allows for transformation that impatience would have prevented. But here's the key. Patience doesn't mean being a doormat. It doesn't mean accepting disrespect. It doesn't mean waiting forever for someone who's not choosing you. Patience means understanding that everything has a season, including ending. Sometimes the most patient thing is to release what's not working, trusting that something better is being prepared. Now, let me share the practical side of developing patience. Because understanding patience intellectually is one thing, actually becoming patient is another. First principle: start small. You don't become patient by forcing yourself through massive waits. You become patient by practicing with tiny delays. Red lights, slow internet, long lines. These aren't obstacles to your day. They're opportunities to practice. Every small wait is a chance to build your patience muscle. Here's what I do. When I encounter a delay, I immediately reframe it. Instead of, "I'm stuck in traffic," I think, "I've been given unexpected time." Instead of, "This line is too long," I think, "I get to practice presence." This isn't toxic positivity. It's practical training. You're literally rewiring your brain's response to waiting. Second principle: find the gift in the gap. Every delay contains a gift if you look for it. Maybe it's time to think. Maybe it's a chance to observe. Maybe it's an opportunity to rest. I was once delayed at an airport for 6 hours. 6 hours. The old me would have been furious, but I'd been practicing patience, so I looked for the gift. I ended up having one of the most important phone conversations of my life during that delay. A conversation I'd been too busy to have. The delay created the space. The space created the connection. The connection changed my life. Third principle: patience is a practice, not a personality trait. You're not a patient person or an impatient person. You're a person who either practices patience or doesn't. This is crucial because it means patience can be developed. It's not about changing who you are. It's about changing what you practice. Every day, I set one patience intention. Today, I'll be patient with technology. Tomorrow, I'll be patient with my progress. The next day, I'll be patient with someone who irritates me. Small, specific, doable. Not, I'll be patient all day with everything. That's setting yourself up for failure. One area, one practice, one day at a time. Fourth principle: breathe through the urgency. Impatience creates physical tension. Your body literally tightens when you're rushing. Your breath becomes shallow. Your muscles contract. Patience begins in the body. When you feel urgency rising, stop and take 3 deep breaths. Not quick breaths, patient breaths. Breathe like you have all the time in the world. Because you do. This isn't woo-woo stuff. This is neuroscience. Deep breathing activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which literally makes patience easier. You're changing your biology to support your psychology. Principle: zoom out. Impatience is often a perspective problem. We're too zoomed in on the moment, making it bigger than it is. Will this delay matter in a week? Will this frustration matter in a month? Will this setback matter in a year? Usually, the answer is no, and that recognition immediately creates patience, because patience is just perspective stretched over time. I want to address something important: the difference between patience and complacency, because they're not the same thing, though they can look similar from the outside. Complacency is passive resignation. It's giving up. It's accepting less than you deserve because you don't believe change is possible. Patience is active trust. It's continuing to work while releasing the timeline. It's maintaining standards while understanding that quality takes time. Complacency says, "This is just how it is." Patience says, "This is how it is right now." Complacency stops trying. Patience keeps planting. Complacency assumes nothing will change. Patience knows everything is changing, even when you can't see it. I spent years confusing these two. I thought being patient meant accepting situations that were genuinely unacceptable. I thought patience meant not having boundaries. I thought patience meant never saying enough. But true patience actually requires incredible strength. It takes strength to keep working when you don't see results. It takes strength to maintain hope when circumstances look hopeless. It takes strength to trust the process when the process seems broken. Patience isn't weakness. It's the ultimate power. Because patient people can't be controlled by urgency. They can't be manipulated by pressure. They can't be forced into decisions they're not ready to make. Think about the most powerful people you know. Not the loudest or the pushiest, the truly powerful ones. They have a quality of unhurriedness about them. They're not easily rattled. They don't make fear-based decisions. They have what I call deep time. They're playing a longer game than everyone else. That's what patience gives you. Deep time. The ability to think in years instead of days. To plant trees you'll never sit under. To start things that won't finish in your lifetime. Let me tell you about patience and creativity. Because this is where patience becomes almost magical. Every creative act requires patience. The song that seems to flow effortlessly, it was preceded by years of practice. The book that changes your life, it took months or years to write the painting that moves you. Each brush stroke was placed with patience. But we live in a world that wants to hack creativity, to force inspiration, to manufacture meaning. And it doesn't work, because creativity, like everything real, operates on its own timeline. I used to try to force creativity. I'd sit at my desk and demand that ideas come. I'd set aggressive deadlines for inspiration. I'd try to squeeze art out of myself like toothpaste from a tube. The results were exactly what you'd expect: forced, flat, lifeless. Because creativity isn't a factory process, it's an organic one. It needs time to percolate, to connect, to ripen. Now I practice creative patience. I show up consistently but without force. I create space for ideas but don't demand they fill it immediately. I plant creative seeds through reading, observing, experiencing. Then I wait for them to sprout in their own time. And they always do, not on my timeline, but on theirs. And when they come, when an idea arrives fully formed after patient cultivation, it has a quality that forced creativity never has. It has life in it. It has truth in it. This applies to any creative endeavor. Parenting is creative. You're creating a human being, and that takes decades of patience. Building a business is creative. You're creating value, and that takes years of patience. Healing is creative. You're creating a new version of yourself, and that takes seasons of patience. The most beautiful things in life are all products of patience. Love, trust, wisdom, character. They can't be rushed. They can't be forced. They can only be cultivated with patient attention over time. Here's something profound about patience. It's contagious. When you become truly patient, it affects everyone around you. Think about being around an impatient person. Their energy is frantic. They make you feel rushed even when there's no hurry. Their anxiety becomes your anxiety. Their urgency becomes your urgency. Now, think about being around a genuinely patient person. Their presence is calming. They make you feel like there's enough time. Their peace becomes your peace. Their trust becomes your trust. When you develop real patience, you become a refuge for others. People seek you out when they're spiraling. They come to you when they need perspective. They trust you with their process because they know you won't rush them through it. I discovered this accidentally. As I developed patience with myself, people started commenting on how calm I'd become, how present, how solid. They'd say things like, "Just being around you makes me feel less anxious." I wasn't trying to affect others. I was just practicing patience for my own sanity. But patience doesn't stay contained. It radiates. It influences. It heals not just you, but everyone in your orbit. This is especially powerful with children. Children absorb the energy around them. When adults are impatient with a child, they become more chaotic, more resistant, more difficult. When adults are patient, children settle, cooperate, flourish. Watch this dynamic in any family. When a child goes through a difficult phase, tantrums, defiance, testing boundaries, and the parents respond with increasing impatience and frustration, the chaos escalates. But when even one person in that environment practices radical patience, sitting calmly during meltdowns, responding without urgency to defiance, maintaining boundaries without emotion, the transformation is remarkable, not just in the child, but in the entire family dynamic. One person's patience gives others permission to be patient. That patience gives the child space to regulate. That regulation restores family peace. All from one person choosing patience. That's the power we're talking about. Now, let's dive into the spiritual dimension of patience. Because patience isn't just a psychological skill, it's a spiritual practice. Every spiritual tradition emphasizes patience. Why? Because spiritual growth cannot be rushed. You can't force enlightenment. You can't hurry awakening. You can't speed run consciousness. The spiritual journey is like climbing a mountain. You can't skip from base camp to summit. You have to traverse every step. You have to acclimatize to each elevation. You have to respect the mountain's timeline, not impose your own. I learned this the hard way. In my 20s, I was spiritually ambitious. I wanted transformation now. I'd do intensive practices, extreme disciplines, forcing breakthrough after breakthrough. And I'd have experiences, powerful ones, but they wouldn't last because I hadn't developed the foundation to sustain them. I was trying to build the penthouse before the foundation was set. Real spiritual development requires patience because it's not about adding something to yourself, it's about revealing what's already there. And that revelation happens in layers, like peeling an onion. Each layer must be honored. Each stage must be completed. The Creator doesn't respond to demands. The divine doesn't operate on human timelines. Sacred wisdom reveals itself to those who wait with readiness, not those who grab with greed. Think about prayer. Real prayer requires patience, not the "give me what I want now" kind of prayer, but the deep communion kind. the listening kind, the kind where you sit in silence and wait for truth to emerge. I used to pray like I was placing an order at a drive-thru. Quick requests, expected immediate delivery. When answers didn't come instantly, I'd assume prayer didn't work. Then I learned to pray with patience, to sit in the question without demanding an answer, to hold the longing without forcing fulfillment, to trust that every sincere prayer is heard, even when the response takes years to recognize. This kind of patient prayer changed everything. Instead of demanding that the divine fit my timeline, I began aligning with divine timing. Instead of telling the Creator what I needed, I began discovering what was being offered. The answers that come through patient prayer are different from the ones you try to force. They're usually not what you expected. They're often not what you wanted, but they're always what you needed. Let me tell you about the patience required for inner transformation. Because changing yourself, really changing, not just rearranging surface behaviors, takes tremendous patience. We live in a world of new year, new you, and transform your life in 30 days, and instant breakthrough techniques. But real transformation doesn't work that way. Real change happens slowly, invisibly, underground. Think about a tree. You don't see it growing day to day, but after a year, it's taller. After a decade, it's massive. After a century, it's magnificent. That's how human transformation works, imperceptibly but inevitably. Consider someone who wants to change reactive patterns, someone who's been quick to anger their whole life, hair-trigger temper, 0 to rage in seconds. They know it's destroying relationships, peace, health. The commitment to change doesn't have to be dramatic or overnight. It can be patient. Every day, practicing one small act of non-reaction, just one. When someone cuts them off in traffic, breathe instead of curse. When technology fails, pause instead of explode. When criticized, listen instead of lash out. For months, it might feel like nothing is changing. The anger's still there, just controlled. The reactions still arising, just not expressed. It's natural to wonder if it's working, but with patience, patient with the process, patient with oneself, patient with the pace of real change, something shifts. Then, one day, about 8 months in, something that would have triggered rage doesn't. Not suppressed anger, not controlled rage, just nothing. The trigger is pulled, but the gun doesn't fire. That's when you realize the change had been happening all along, underground, invisible, but real. The patient daily practice rewired the nervous system. The consistent, small choices created a new default response. This is how all real change happens. Not through force, but through patience. Not through intensity, but through consistency. Not through grand gestures, but through daily practice. But here's the key. You have to be patient with your impatience. You have to be gentle with your failures. You have to forgive yourself for not being patient enough, because beating yourself up for being impatient is just another form of impatience. It's saying, I should be further along in developing patience, which is literally the opposite of patience. The path to patience requires patience with the path itself. I want to talk about patience in suffering, because this is where patience becomes not just helpful, but essential for survival. Everyone suffers. It's part of the human contract. The question isn't whether you'll suffer, but how you'll relate to suffering when it arrives. Impatience with suffering multiplies it. When you resist pain, demanding it end immediately, you add suffering to suffering. You create meta-pain, pain about being in pain. Patience with suffering doesn't mean you like it or want it. It means you accept its presence while trusting its purpose. You stop fighting reality and start working with it. Consider going through a period of intense loss. Multiple losses, actually, stacked on top of each other like a grief sandwich. When life delivers blow after blow, death, separation, career collapse, all in rapid succession. The first instinct is to rush through it, to get over it, to return to normal as quickly as possible. But grief doesn't respond to urgency. Loss doesn't heal on a timeline. The heart has its own pace. Learning patience with pain means letting grief move through without rushing it out, letting loss reshape without resisting the reformation, letting the old life die completely before trying to birth a new one. This kind of patience in the dark night of the soul, it's the hardest kind, because every cell in your body wants the pain to stop. Every thought in your mind is seeking escape. Every moment feels eternal. But here's what I discovered in that darkness. Suffering has intelligence. It knows what it's doing. It's not random torture. It's precise surgery. It's removing what needs to be removed. It's breaking what needs to be broken. It's clearing space for what needs to emerge. When you're patient with suffering, you start to see its purpose. Not immediately, that would be too easy. But eventually, looking back, you see how the worst thing that happened to you became the best thing that happened for you. The relationship that broke your heart, it broke you open to a love you couldn't have received before. The job you lost freed you to find work that actually matches your soul. The illness that stopped you, it taught you what really matters. But you can only see this in retrospect. In the moment, in the middle of the suffering, all you can do is be patient. Trust that this too has purpose. Trust that this too will pass. Trust that this too is part of becoming who you're meant to be. Let's talk about patience with others' growth. Because one of the hardest things is watching someone you love make mistakes you could help them avoid, learn lessons you've already learned, suffer in ways you could prevent. Every parent knows this torture. Watching your child struggle with something you could easily solve for them, but knowing that solving it for them would rob them of the growth that comes from solving it themselves. Every friend knows this challenge. Seeing someone you care about in a toxic relationship, making destructive choices, heading toward inevitable pain, wanting to shake them awake, wanting to fast forward them to wisdom. But people don't grow on your timeline. They grow on their own, and trying to rush someone else's growth is like trying to rush a flower to bloom. You'll destroy the very thing you're trying to help. Consider having a friend who's in a relationship that's clearly unhealthy. Everyone can see it except them. The instinct is to stage an intervention to present evidence, to force them to see what's obvious to everyone else. But what if we practice patience instead? Stay present without pushing. Remain available without advising. Hold space for their process without trying to speed it up. It might take years. Years of watching them struggle unnecessarily. Years of biting your tongue. Years of patient presence. Then one day, they see it on their own, in their own time. And because the realization comes from within instead of without, it sticks. They don't just leave the relationship, they understand why they were in it. They don't just change their situation, they change themselves. If we force the realization earlier, they resist or relapse. Patience allows for genuine transformation instead of surface compliance. This applies to everyone in your life. Your parents, who won't change their outdated views, they're on their own timeline. Your sibling, who keeps making the same mistakes, they're learning at their own pace. Your colleague, who doesn't see their potential, they'll discover it when they're ready. Your job isn't to accelerate their growth, it's to love them through it, to be patient with their process, to trust that everyone is exactly where they need to be for the lessons they need to learn. Now, I want to share something about patience and success, because we live in a culture that preaches hustle harder and sleep when you're dead, and success loves speed. But look at anyone who's achieved lasting success, not flash-in-the-pan fame, but sustainable significance. They'll tell you the same thing. Real success takes decades, not days. The overnight success that took 10 years. The sudden breakthrough after years of invisible preparation. The moment of recognition after seasons of patient cultivation. Real success is like an iceberg. Everyone sees the tip, the achievement, the recognition, the reward. Nobody sees the massive foundation underneath, the years of patient practice, the seasons of invisible growth, the decades of consistent development. Consider someone who builds a company that sells for millions. Everyone calls them lucky, says they hit the lottery, were in the right place at the right time. What people don't see: 15 years of previous failures, 15 years of learning, adjusting, developing skills, building relationships, understanding markets. The overnight success was actually the culmination of patient preparation meeting opportunity. But here's the real secret about patience and success. Patience changes how you define success itself. When you're impatient, success is always in the future. It's the next achievement, the next level, the next acquisition. You're always chasing, never arriving. Even when you achieve something, you immediately discount it and chase the next thing. When you're patient, success is in the process itself. It's showing up consistently. It's growing incrementally. It's becoming rather than achieving. You're always succeeding because you're always developing. This isn't some consolation prize philosophy. This is practical reality. The patient person enjoys the entire journey. The impatient person only enjoys brief moments of arrival before anxiety returns. Think about it. If success is only the destination, and the destination keeps moving, when do you ever actually succeed? Never. You're perpetually unsuccessful, even when achieving. But if success is the patient daily practice of becoming better, then you're successful every day you show up. You're successful every time you choose growth. You're successful in the process, not just the outcome. Let me address something important: patience with yourself. Because often we can be patient with everything and everyone except ourselves. We give others grace, but demand perfection from ourselves. We understand others' struggles, but judge our own harshly. We're patient with others' growth, but impatient with our own pace. This self-impatience is exhausting. It's like having a drill sergeant in your head constantly screaming, "Faster, better, more." No matter what you achieve, it's not enough. No matter how fast you grow, it's too slow. I was brutal with myself for years, demanding impossible standards, setting unrealistic timelines, beating myself up for being human. Then I realized something. I would never talk to a friend the way I talked to myself. I would never demand from a child what I demanded from myself. I would never be as harsh with anyone as I was with myself. So I started practicing self-patience, talking to myself like I would talk to someone I love, giving myself the time I would give a friend, accepting my pace the way I would accept a child's. This wasn't easy. Self-impatience was a deeply ingrained pattern. It felt like love, like I was pushing myself because I cared. But it wasn't love. It was fear. Fear of not being enough. Fear of falling behind. Fear of wasting life. Real self-love is patient. It says, you're doing your best with what you have. It says, growth takes time and that's okay. It says, you're exactly where you need to be. When you're patient with yourself, something miraculous happens. You actually grow faster because you're not wasting energy on self-attack. You're not creating resistance with self-judgment. You're not sabotaging progress with self-punishment. The patient gardener grows healthier plants than the impatient one. The same is true for growing yourself. I want to talk about patience in the modern world because, let's be honest, everything in our culture is designed to destroy patience. Social media gives instant dopamine hits. Technology eliminates waiting. Amazon delivers same day. Netflix releases entire seasons at once. Everything is engineered to feed impatience. We've created a world where waiting 3 seconds for a web page to load causes rage, where being placed on hold for 2 minutes feels like torture, where delayed gratification is seen as deprivation. And then we wonder why anxiety is epidemic, why nobody can focus, why relationships are disposable, why fulfillment feels impossible. The answer is simple. We've forgotten how to be patient. We've lost the ability to wait. We've abandoned the wisdom of timing. But here's the opportunity. In an impatient world, patience becomes a superpower. When everyone else is rushing, the patient person has enormous advantage. The patient person makes better decisions because they're not driven by urgency. The patient person builds better relationships because they allow them to develop naturally. The patient person creates better work because they give it time to mature. In a world of instant everything, the person who can wait wins. But developing patience in this environment requires intentional practice. You have to actively resist the culture of urgency. You have to consciously choose slowness in a world that worships speed. Here's what I do. I build patience practices into my day. I deliberately choose the longer line at the store. I take the stairs instead of the elevator. I cook meals instead of ordering. I read books instead of scrolling feeds. These aren't just lifestyle choices. They're resistance acts. They're saying, I refuse to let impatience rule my life. I refuse to worship at the altar of speed. I refuse to sacrifice depth for efficiency. Every time you choose patience in an impatient world, you're reclaiming your humanity. You're asserting that you're not a machine optimized for speed, but a human being designed for depth. Let's talk about the patience required for mastery. Because in a world of hacks and shortcuts, we've forgotten that mastery takes decades. The concert pianist who makes it look effortless, they've been practicing since childhood. The chef who creates magic in the kitchen, they've been cooking for 20 years. The writer whose words pierce your soul, they've written millions of words you'll never see. Mastery requires a kind of patience that our culture doesn't understand anymore. The patience to be bad at something for a long time. The patience to practice when nobody's watching. The patience to continue when progress is invisible. I decided to learn a musical instrument in my 30s. Everyone said it was too late. Your brain isn't plastic enough. You'll never be good. Why bother? But I wasn't trying to be a prodigy. I was practicing patience through practice. The first year was horrible. Sounds that barely qualified as music. Fingers that wouldn't cooperate. A brain that couldn't coordinate. Every practice session was humbling. Most people quit during this phase. They can't tolerate being bad at something. They need immediate competence, or they abandon the pursuit. But I kept showing up. Patient with my incompetence. Patient with my pace. Patient with the process. Year 2 was marginally better. Still bad, but bad with occasional moments of not terrible. Year 3 brought glimpses of actual music. Year 4, people could recognize songs. Year 5, I could play without embarrassment. Now, 7 years later, I'm not a master, but I'm competent. And more importantly, I understand mastery. I understand that it's not about talent or genetics or natural gifts. It's about patient practice over time. The same patience that created musical competence can create mastery in anything. Relationships, parenting, professional skills, spiritual development. The formula is always the same. Patient practice over time. But we live in a culture that wants mastery without patience. We want to be experts after watching a YouTube video. We want to be wise without living through seasons. We want depth without doing the diving. It doesn't work that way. Never has, never will. Mastery requires patience. And patience with mastery requires understanding that the journey is the destination. Now let me share something about patience and timing. Because patience isn't just about waiting. It's about recognizing the right moment to act. There's a time for patience and a time for action. Wisdom is knowing which time you're in. I used to think patience meant always waiting, never pushing, never forcing. But that's not patience. That's passivity. Real patience includes knowing when the waiting is over and the doing begins. It's like surfing. You can't force a wave to come. You have to wait patiently, watching the horizon, reading the patterns. But when your wave arrives, you have to act decisively. Hesitation means you miss it. Life works the same way. Opportunities have windows. Relationships have moments. Insights have seasons. Being patient doesn't mean being passive. It means being ready. I waited 3 years to have a crucial conversation with someone. 3 years of knowing it needed to happen, but sensing the timing wasn't right. 3 years of patient preparation, gathering courage, finding the right words. Then one day, the moment arrived. I could feel it. The opening was there. The readiness was mutual. The timing was perfect. If I had forced the conversation earlier, it would have failed. If I had hesitated when the moment came, I would have missed it. Patience gave me both, the wisdom to wait and the clarity to act. This is sophisticated patience, not just waiting, but watching, not just enduring, but preparing, not just accepting, but anticipating. Think about farmers. They don't just wait for harvest, they prepare for it. They watch the signs, they test the soil, they monitor the weather, and when the moment arrives, they act swiftly and decisively. That's the kind of patience we need. Active patience, intelligent patience, patience with purpose. I want to talk about generational patience, the kind of patience that thinks beyond your own lifetime. Indigenous cultures understood this. They made decisions based on how it would affect 7 generations in the future. They planted trees they'd never sit under. They preserved land they'd never fully explore. We've lost this generational patience. We think in quarters, not centuries. We optimize for immediate returns, not long-term thriving. We consume resources like there's no tomorrow because we can't be patient enough to consider tomorrow's tomorrow. But some things require generational patience, environmental healing, cultural transformation, systemic change. These don't happen in one lifetime. They require patience that transcends individual existence. Think about someone who starts a foundation to educate children in underserved areas. They know they won't see the full impact. It will take generations for education to transform those communities. But they plant anyway. They build anyway. They invest anyway. That's generational patience. Working on problems you won't see solved. Starting movements you won't see completed. Planting seeds for forests you'll never walk through. This kind of patience requires a different relationship with significance. You have to care more about the work than the credit, more about the impact than the recognition, more about the legacy than the lifestyle. Most of us won't be remembered by name, but our patient work will ripple forward through time. The child you raise with patience becomes an adult who raises their children with patience. The kindness you show creates a chain reaction of compassion. The wisdom you share gets passed on in ways you'll never know. Every patient act is the investment in a future you won't see. Every patient choice is a gift to people you'll never meet. Every patient moment is a contribution to the great unfolding that continues long after you're gone. Now let me share something profound about patience and prayer, because here's where patience becomes not just a practice but a portal to the divine. Most people pray like they're ordering fast food. Quick request, expected delivery time, frustration when the order doesn't arrive as specified. But real prayer, the kind that transforms you from the inside out, requires a completely different kind of patience. I used to pray with a stopwatch mentality. God, I need this by Tuesday. Creator, please fix this situation within the month. Divine Source, if you're listening, show me a sign by tomorrow. Every prayer had a deadline. Every request had an expiration date. And when those deadlines passed without obvious answers, I'd conclude prayer didn't work. I'd feel abandoned, ignored, unheard. My impatience with divine timing was actually blocking divine communication. Then someone taught me something profound. They said, Praying is like sowing a seed. You bury something precious in the soil of trust. It seems to disappear, to die even, but underground, invisible to your eyes, transformation is happening. The seed is gathering strength, sending out roots, preparing to break through. But if you keep digging it up to check on it, you'll kill what was meant to grow. This shifted everything. I started praying without deadlines, making requests without demands, opening my heart without conditions, and something remarkable happened. The answers started coming, not always as I expected, rarely when I expected, but always exactly what I needed, exactly when I could handle it. Consider this profound example. Someone prays desperately for a specific opportunity, a position they think will change everything. They pray with such intensity, such certainty that this is the answer. When it doesn't happen, they feel devastated, betrayed by the divine. Years later, they meet someone who got that exact position. That person is miserable. The culture is toxic. The work is soul-crushing. The promise of transformation was a lie. They say, "I wish I had your life instead." That's when understanding dawns. The unanswered prayer was actually an answered prayer. The no was protection. The delay was redirection. What felt like divine abandonment was actually divine intervention. But here's the deeper truth about patient prayer. It's not really about getting what you ask for. It's about becoming who you need to be. Every moment you spend in patient prayer, you're being refined. Every second of waiting with faith, you're being strengthened. Every instance of trusting without seeing, you're being prepared for something greater than what you're requesting. Here's what I've learned about this. The divine delays response not from cruelty, but from compassion. Like a parent who doesn't give a child everything they demand, knowing that immediate gratification would harm their development. Think about it. If every prayer was answered immediately, we'd never develop spiritual strength. We'd never learn trust. We'd never discover that the journey toward the answer is often more valuable than the answer itself. I've learned to pray differently now. Instead of, "Give me this," I pray, "Prepare me for what's coming." Instead of, "Fix this situation," I pray, "Show me what this situation is teaching me." Instead of, "Answer by this date," I pray, "Answer in perfect timing." This kind of patient prayer requires tremendous faith, because you're essentially saying, "I trust divine wisdom more than my own urgency. I trust divine timing more than my human timeline. I trust that what's meant for me won't miss me, even if it takes decades to arrive." Let me go deeper into patience and healing, not just physical healing, but the healing of the heart, the mind, the soul, because all true healing requires patience that our quick-fix culture doesn't understand. We live in a world of instant remedies. Pop a pill for physical pain. Download an app for mental health. Attend a weekend workshop for spiritual transformation. We want healing like we want everything else. Fast, efficient, guaranteed. But real healing doesn't work that way. Real healing is like the way a bone mends, slowly, invisibly, from the inside out. You can't speed it up without compromising the integrity of the repair. I learned this through my own healing journey, not from a physical ailment, though I had those too, but from something deeper, the healing of childhood wounds that had shaped my entire adult life. For years, I tried to heal quickly. Intensive therapy sessions, healing retreats, every modality that promised rapid transformation. I was impatient with my pain, demanding it leave immediately. But trauma doesn't respond to demands. Wounds don't heal on command. The psyche has its own timeline, its own intelligence, its own process. A wise healer once told me, "You're trying to rip the bandage off a wound that's still bleeding. You're trying to run on a broken leg. You're trying to declare yourself healed while you're still hurting. That's not healing. That's bypassing." So I had to learn healing patience. The patience to feel without fixing. The patience to hurt without numbing. The the patience to be broken without rushing to be whole. This kind of patience is excruciating because every fiber of your being wants the pain to stop. Every cell is screaming for relief. Every thought is seeking escape. But healing patience says, I'll stay with this as long as it takes. I'll honor this process even when it hurts. I'll trust the intelligence of my own healing. Month after month, I practiced this patience, sitting with discomfort without trying to transcend it, feeling feelings fully without trying to process them away, being present to pain without making it wrong. And slowly, so slowly I almost didn't notice, things began to shift. Not dramatically, not obviously, but genuinely. The wounds didn't disappear, but they transformed. The pain didn't vanish, but it became purposeful. The healing didn't complete, but it progressed. Here's what I discovered. Healing has seasons, just like nature. There's the winter of acute pain, where everything feels frozen and dead. There's the spring of first movement, tiny shoots of hope breaking through. There's the summer of growth, expansion, new life. There's the autumn of integration, harvesting the wisdom from the wound. You can't rush these seasons. You can't skip winter and jump to summer. You can't force spring to come early. You have to honor each season, each stage, each moment of the healing journey. And here's the paradox. The more patient you are with healing, the more complete the healing becomes. When you stop rushing, the body relaxes and can actually repair. When you stop forcing, the mind settles and can actually process. When you stop demanding, the soul opens and can actually transform. Let me tell you about patience and manifestation, because there's so much confusion about this. People think if they just believe hard enough, visualize clearly enough, affirm frequently enough, what they want will materialize instantly. But manifestation isn't magic. It's a process. And like every process, it requires patience. I spent years in the manifestation community, vision boards, affirmations, visualization, acting as if, and I watched people become increasingly frustrated when their desires didn't manifest on their timeline. The problem wasn't their technique, it wasn't their belief, it wasn't their worthiness. The problem was their impatience with the process of becoming someone who could receive what they were requesting. Here's what nobody tells you about manifestation. The delay between desire and fulfillment isn't a bug. It's a feature. It's preparation time. It's becoming time. It's alignment time. Think about it. If you got everything you wanted the moment you wanted it, you'd destroy yourself. The lottery winner who loses everything within years. The overnight success who can't handle fame. The rushed relationship that implodes. Quick manifestation often leads to quick destruction. Divine timing knows this. It knows you need to develop the capacity to hold what you're calling in. You need to become someone who can steward what you're seeking. You need to align with what you're asking for, not just want it. I wanted financial abundance for years. I did all the practices. I felt the feelings. I took inspired action, and nothing. Year after year, still struggling, I was ready to give up on the whole concept. Then I realized something. Every year of delay, I was learning something essential: how to manage money, how to value resources, how to be generous even in scarcity, how to find abundance beyond money. I wasn't just waiting for wealth, I was becoming someone who could handle wealth wisely. When financial abundance finally came, I was ready. Not just ready to receive it, but ready to maintain it, grow it, share it. The patience hadn't been wasted time. It had been preparation time. This applies to everything we're trying to manifest. The relationship you want, you're becoming someone who can sustain healthy love. The career you desire, you're developing skills you don't even know you'll need. The transformation you seek, you're building the foundation to support it. Manifestation patience isn't passive waiting. It's active becoming. Every day you don't see results, you're being prepared for results. Every moment your desire hasn't manifested, you're being aligned with your desire. But this requires trust. Trust that the universe isn't withholding from you but preparing for you. Trust that delays are divine. Trust that everything is happening in perfect order, even when, especially when, you can't see it. Now, let's explore patience with your purpose. Because finding and fulfilling your purpose isn't a weekend workshop discovery. It's a lifetime revelation that unfolds in layers. Everyone wants to know their purpose now. What am I here for? What's my mission? What's my calling? And they want a clear, simple answer. You're here to be a teacher. Your purpose is to heal others. Your mission is to create beauty. But purpose doesn't reveal itself all at once. It emerges slowly, through living, through experiencing, through becoming. It's less like finding a treasure map and more like walking a path that only becomes visible as you walk it. I spent my 20s desperately seeking my purpose. I read every book, took every assessment, asked every mentor. I was impatient for clarity, for direction, for that lightning bolt moment of knowing. The more I pushed for purpose, the more confused I became, because I was trying to force a flower to bloom before its season. I was trying to read the end of the story while still in chapter 1 I was trying to see the whole picture while still painting the first strokes. Then life forced me to slow down. Through circumstances I didn't choose, I had to stop seeking and start being. Stop chasing purpose and start living purposefully. Stop demanding clarity and start trusting the unfolding. And in that patience, something remarkable happened. Purpose began revealing itself not as a destination, but as a way of being. Not as a job title, but as a quality of presence. Not as something to find, but as something to embody. My purpose wasn't one thing. It was many things, each building on the last. First, learning to heal myself. Then, sharing that healing with others. Then, creating spaces for collective healing. Then, teaching the teachers. Each layer only became visible after living the previous one. If someone had told me my purpose in my 20s, I wouldn't have understood it. I needed the experiences, the failures, the growth, the patience of becoming to even comprehend what I was here to do. This is how purpose works for everyone. It's revealed in stages, each stage preparing you for the next. You can't skip ahead. You can't fast forward. You can't download your purpose like an app. The patience to let purpose unfold naturally is perhaps the hardest patience of all, because we live in a world that demands you know your purpose by 25, achieve it by 35, and master it by 45. But real purpose doesn't follow human timelines. Some people don't discover their true purpose until their 60s. Some are living their purpose without knowing it. Some have multiple purposes that emerge at different life stages. Some have a purpose that takes generations to fulfill. The key is patience with the not knowing, patience with the uncertainty, patience with the becoming. Because every experience is shaping your purpose, every challenge is refining it. Every delay is preparing you for it. Your purpose isn't hiding from you. It's developing within you. And like all development, it takes time, patience, and trust in the process. Let me share something about patience and forgiveness. Real forgiveness. Not the quick, I forgive you that changes nothing, but the deep release that transforms everything. Requires patience most people aren't willing to give. We want forgiveness to be instant. Someone hurts us, we decide to forgive. Done. But that's not forgiveness. That's bypassing. Real forgiveness is a process, sometimes taking years, sometimes taking decades. I carried resentment towards someone for 15 years. 15 years of anger eating at me like acid. I tried to forgive, said the words countless times, did the exercises, wrote the letters, but the resentment remained, buried but alive. Then I learned about the patience of forgiveness. That forgiveness isn't a decision, but a journey. Not a moment, but a process. not a destination, but a path you walk, sometimes for years. So I stopped trying to forgive and started being patient with my inability to forgive. I stopped judging my resentment and started understanding it. I stopped forcing release and started allowing it to happen naturally. Day by day, month by month, year by year, I stayed patient with the process. Some days, the resentment was strong. Some days it was barely there. Some days I felt close to forgiveness. Some days I felt further than ever. But I stayed patient, patient with my heart's timeline, patient with my soul's process, patient with the pace of real release. And then one day, I can't even tell you exactly when, I realized the resentment was gone. Not suppressed, not managed, gone. The forgiveness had happened so gradually, so naturally, I hadn't even noticed the moment of release. This is how real forgiveness works. It's like erosion. Water wearing away rock not through force, but through patience. The patience to feel the hurt fully. The patience to understand the wound completely. The patience to let healing happen naturally. But we live in a world that rushes forgiveness. Just let it go. Don't hold grudges. Forgive and forget. As if forgiveness is something you can just decide and be done with. Real forgiveness requires patience with your own heart. Patience with the part of you that's still hurt. Patience with the part that's still angry. Patience with the human process of gradually releasing what no longer serves. And here's what I've learned. Forced forgiveness doesn't free you. It imprisons you in fake peace. But patient forgiveness, forgiveness that honors the journey, forgiveness that respects the process, that forgiveness transforms you completely. Let me tell you about patience in parenting, because raising a human being is the ultimate patience practice. It takes decades, and you're never really done. Every parent knows the unique exhaustion of repeating the same thing hundreds of times. Brush your teeth, do your homework, be kind to your sister. The same lessons, over and over, with seemingly no progress. But children don't learn in straight lines. They learn in spirals. The same lesson at 5 looks different at 10, at 15, at 20. What seems like repetition is actually deepening. What feels like no progress is actually invisible foundation building. I watch parents destroy their children with impatience, demanding maturity before it's time, forcing development that needs to unfold naturally, trying to fast forward through childhood to get to the easier parts. But there are no easier parts, just different parts, and each part requires its own patience. The patience of sleepless nights with infants, the patience of irrational tantrums with toddlers, the patience of endless questions with young children, the patience of attitude with preteens, the patience of rebellion with teenagers, the patience of mistakes with young adults, and then, if you're lucky, the patience to watch them parent their own children, making their own mistakes, learning their own lessons. A friend of mine has a son who struggled in school for years. Every parent-teacher conference was painful. Every report card was disappointing. Every comparison to other kids was heartbreaking. She wanted to fix it, force it, make him be the student she knew he could be. But she chose patience instead. Patient tutoring without pressure. Patient encouragement without expectation. Patient presence without judgment. Years passed. Slow progress. Many setbacks. Lots of tears, both his and hers. But she stayed patient, trusting his timeline, trusting his process, trusting that every child blooms in their own season. Today, that struggling student is a successful adult, not in the way she imagined, but in his own unique way. The patience she showed didn't just help him academically, it taught him that he was loved unconditionally, valued regardless of performance, worthy of patience. That's what parenting patience gives children, the safety to grow at their own pace, the freedom to fail without losing love, the trust that someone believes in their becoming, even when the becoming is slow. But parenting patience isn't just patience with children. It's patience with yourself as a parent, patience with your mistakes, patience with your learning, patience with the fact that you're raising a human while still becoming one yourself. Let me tell you about patience and love, because love might be the ultimate test of patience. Real love, not the Hollywood version, but the daily reality version, requires extraordinary patience. The patience to see someone fully, flaws and all, and choose them anyway. The patience to grow together when you're growing at different speeds. The patience to forgive the same mistake multiple times. The patience to stay when leaving would be easier. I used to think love was a feeling. Butterflies and fireworks and can't eat, can't sleep excitement. And it is sometimes. But mostly, love is a practice. And the core of that practice is patience. Patience when they're struggling and you can't fix it. Patience when they're growing and you're scared they'll outgrow you. Patience when they're stuck and you want them to move forward. Patience when they need space and you want closeness. Every long-term relationship is really a series of relationships. You're not the same people who fell in love, neither are they. You have to fall in love over and over with new versions of each other, and that requires patience with the constant becoming. I've watched impatience destroy more relationships than anything else. The impatience that says you should be different by now. The impatience that says we should be further along. The impatience that says this should be easier. But love isn't supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be transformative, and transformation requires patience. Think about what love really asks of you. To witness someone's worst and believe in their best. To hold space for their healing without rushing it. To trust the process when the process is messy. To stay present when presence is painful. That's patience. That's love. They're inseparable. But here's the beautiful thing about patience and love. It creates safety. When someone knows you're not going anywhere, they can finally relax. When they trust your patience, they can risk vulnerability. When they feel your steadiness, they can explore their edges. Impatient love creates anxiety. Patient love creates peace. Impatient love demands performance. Patient love allows authenticity. Impatient love is conditional. Patient love is free. Now, I want to address something difficult. When patience becomes toxic. Because yes, there's such a thing as too much patience. Or rather, patience applied to the wrong situations. Patience with abuse isn't virtue, it's self-harm. Patience with disrespect isn't strength, it's self-abandonment. Patience with toxicity isn't spiritual, it's destructive. I spent years being patient with situations that were genuinely harmful. I thought I was being evolved. I thought I was practicing high-level spirituality. I was actually enabling dysfunction and calling it patience. Real patience knows when to walk away. Real patience includes boundaries. Real patience doesn't mean enduring the unacceptable. Here's how to tell the difference. Healthy patience feels expansive. You're growing through the challenge. Toxic patience feels contractive. You're shrinking to survive. Healthy patience is choosing to wait. Toxic patience is feeling trapped. Healthy patience trusts the process. Toxic patience hopes for rescue. If your patience is destroying your peace, it's not patience. It's fear. Fear of conflict. Fear of change. Fear of being alone. Fear disguised as spiritual virtue. I had to learn that leaving isn't impatience. Sometimes leaving is the most patient thing you can do. Patient with yourself. Patient with your own growth. Patient with your own becoming. You can be patient with someone's journey without sacrificing yourself to it. You can have compassion for someone's struggle without drowning in it. You can love someone's potential without waiting forever for it to manifest. Patience isn't about having no boundaries. It's about maintaining boundaries with grace. Let's talk about patience with the body, because your body operates on its own timeline, and fighting that timeline creates suffering. your body heals at its own pace. Forcing it to heal faster through aggressive treatment often slows healing. Your body loses weight at its own pace. Forcing it through extreme measures creates rebound. Your body ages at its own pace. Fighting it desperately creates more stress, which accelerates aging. I learned this through injury. I pushed too hard, too fast, trying to achieve a fitness goal on my timeline instead of my body's. Result: serious injury that took months to heal. During those months, I had to learn body patience, to rest when everything in me wanted to push, to be still when everything in me wanted to move, to trust my body's intelligence when my mind was screaming interference. This patience taught me something profound. The body is always communicating, but impatience makes us deaf to its messages. When you're patient with your body, you start hearing its whispers before they become screams. You notice the early signs of exhaustion before you hit burnout. You feel the subtle signals of hunger and fullness. You recognize the difference between discomfort that's growth and pain that's warning. But we live in a culture that treats the body like a machine to be optimized. We hack our sleep, optimize our nutrition, maximize our output. We're impatient with our biology, trying to upgrade it like software. Your body isn't a machine, it's an organism. It operates in cycles, seasons, rhythms. It needs rest as much as activity. It needs gentleness as much as challenge. It needs patience as much as discipline. When you're patient with your body, it becomes your ally instead of your enemy. When you work with its timeline instead of against it, everything becomes easier. Exercise becomes enjoyable instead of punishment. Eating becomes nourishment instead of control. Rest becomes restoration instead of laziness. The body you're impatient with becomes the body you fight. The body you're patient with becomes the body you trust. I want to share something about patience and money, because financial pressure creates more impatience than almost anything else. When you're struggling financially, everything feels urgent. Every opportunity feels like it might be the last. Every decision feels like it could make or break you. This urgency creates terrible decisions. When someone is broke, really broke, choosing between food and gas broke, they make every impatient financial decision possible. Take jobs they shouldn't take, accept terms they shouldn't accept, grab at money like a drowning person grabs at anything that floats. And every impatient financial decision makes things worse. The desperate job leads to misery, affecting performance, leading to job loss. The bad terms come back to haunt. The grabbing creates more scarcity. But here's something counterintuitive. Patience creates abundance. Impatience creates scarcity. Then I learned something counterintuitive. Patience creates abundance. Impatience creates scarcity. When you're patient with money, you make better decisions. You negotiate better terms. You recognize better opportunities. You build sustainable income instead of grabbing quick cash. But this requires tremendous faith when you're financially pressured. It requires believing that saying no to wrong money makes room for right money. It requires trusting that patience, even in scarcity, leads to abundance. I started practicing financial patience even when broke. I'd turn down work that felt wrong even when I needed money. I'd negotiate fairly even when desperate. I'd think long-term, even when short-term was screaming. It was terrifying, but it worked. The patience created space for better opportunities. The standards attracted better clients. The long-term thinking created sustainable success. This doesn't mean being passive about money. It means being patient with the process of building wealth. Real wealth, not just money, but resources, relationships, reputation, takes time. There are no shortcuts that don't eventually become detours. Every get-rich-quick scheme is impatience monetized. Every financial crisis is impatience compounded. Every sustainable fortune is patience materialized. Now, Let's talk about patience in the digital age specifically, because technology has fundamentally rewired our relationship with waiting. We used to understand that communication took time. Letters, days. Phone calls required both parties to be available. Meetings required physical presence. This built-in delay created natural patience. Now, everything is instant. Text messages create anxiety if not answered immediately. Emails feel urgent even when they're not. Social media provides endless, immediate stimulation. We've eliminated waiting, and with it, we've eliminated patience. But here's the paradox. The more instant everything becomes, the more we need patience, because instantness creates endless urgency. Everything feels immediate. Everything demands response. Everything screams, now. I did an experiment. I turned off all notifications. All of them. No pings, dings, buzzes, or pop-ups. For the first week, I felt like I was missing everything. The anxiety was real. What if something important happened? What if someone needed me? What if I missed out? But after that first week, something shifted. The artificial urgency disappeared. I checked messages when I chose to, not when prompted. I responded when ready, not when pressured. I lived my actual life instead of responding to digital demands. This created space for patience. Without constant interruption, I could focus deeply. Without immediate pressure, I could think clearly. Without digital urgency, I could be present fully. But this requires conscious choice. The default is impatience. The system is designed for addiction. The algorithms feed on your attention. Choosing patience in the digital age is an act of rebellion. Here's what I've learned. Digital patience doesn't mean being slow to respond. It means being intentional about response. It doesn't mean ignoring technology. It means not being controlled by it. Every time you immediately grab your phone when it buzzes, you're training impatience. Every time you pause before responding, you're training patience. Every moment of digital delay is a victory for your humanity. I want to talk about patience with the unknown, because uncertainty is where patience is most needed and most difficult. When you don't know what's coming, when you can't see the path, when the future is fog, that's when impatience screams loudest. The mind hates uncertainty. It wants to know now. It wants to control now. It wants resolution now. But life is mostly uncertainty. We pretend we know what is coming, but we don't. We make plans as if we control outcomes, but we don't. We live as if tomorrow is guaranteed, but it's not. Patience with uncertainty is perhaps the highest form of patience. It's trusting when you can't see. It's walking when the path isn't clear. It's continuing when you don't know where you're going. I went through a period where everything was uncertain. Career direction, unclear. Relationship status, undefined. Life purpose, unknown. Every door I tried seemed locked. Every path I explored led nowhere. The temptation was to force clarity, to make impulsive decisions just to end the uncertainty, to choose wrong rather than not choose, to settle for anything rather than wait for something. Instead, I practiced being patient with not knowing. I learned to say, "I don't know," without anxiety. I learned to sit in questions without demanding answers. I learned to trust that clarity comes in its own time. This patience with uncertainty revealed something profound. Uncertainty is not emptiness. It's potential. It's not absence. It's possibility. It's not lost. It's open. When you're patient with uncertainty, you stop forcing premature clarity. You stop making fear-based decisions. You stop choosing from desperation. You wait for real knowing, not anxious choosing. And real knowing always comes. Not on your timeline, but on its own. Not how you expected, but how you needed. Not what you planned, but what was planned for you. The patience to sit in uncertainty until real clarity emerges. This might be the most valuable patience of all. Let me share something about patience and presence, because patience isn't about the future, it's about the present. We think patience means waiting for something to happen, but real patience is being fully here while things unfold. It's not checking out until conditions improve. It's checking in to what's actually happening now. Patience is always about being somewhere else, wanting to be further along, wanting to be finished, wanting to be anywhere but here. It's rejection of the present moment. Patience is acceptance of now while trusting the flow toward later. It's being fully here while knowing this isn't forever. It's presence with process. I used to spend my whole life in the future, always planning the next thing, always anticipating what's coming, always living in tomorrow while missing today. Then life forced me to stop. Circumstances I couldn't change, timelines I couldn't accelerate, processes I couldn't rush. I had to be here now whether I wanted to or not. At first, it felt like prison, being stuck in the present when I wanted to be in the future. But slowly, I discovered something. The present is the only place where life actually happens. The future you're impatient to reach? When you get there, it will be the present. The past you're nostalgic for? When you lived it, it was the present. The only real moment is this one. Patience brings you home into now. It stops the constant forward-leaning that makes you miss your actual life. It ends the permanent postponement of presence. When you're truly patient, you're not waiting for life to begin. You realize it already has. You're not waiting to be happy. You find happiness available now. You're not waiting for peace. You discover peace was here all along, hidden under impatience. Now, I want to talk about collective patience. Because individual patience is powerful, but collective patience can transform the world. Think about the great movements of history: civil rights, women's suffrage, labor rights. None of them happened overnight. They required collective patience, entire communities staying committed to change over decades. But we live in an age of instant outrage and quick forgetting. We want systemic change by next week. We want centuries of injustice corrected immediately. We want complex problems solved simply. This impatience with collective change creates burnout and abandonment. People rage intensely, then disappear. They demand revolution, then retreat when it requires evolution. Real change requires collective patience. Communities that stay engaged when progress is slow. Groups that continue working when victories are small. Movements that persist when resistance is strong. I've been part of initiatives that failed because of collective impatience. Everyone excited at first. Everyone committed when it felt fresh. But when the real work began, the slow, unsexy, patient work, people disappeared. And I've been part of initiatives that succeeded through collective patience. Not the loudest or most dramatic efforts, but the ones where people showed up consistently, where communities stayed connected, where patience outlasted resistance. Collective patience is harder than individual patience, because you're not just managing your own impatience, you're sustaining patience in others. You're maintaining morale when progress is invisible. You're keeping faith when evidence is scarce. But collective patience is also more powerful than individual patience, because patient communities can achieve what impatient individuals never could. They can plant forests. They can change cultures. They can bend the arc of history. The world needs our collective patience now more than ever. The challenges we face, ecological, social, spiritual, they won't be solved by the impatient. They'll be solved by communities that can think in generations, work in decades, and show up daily. I want to address patience fatigue, because yes, patience can become exhausting. Sometimes you've been patient so long you have nothing left. You've waited and waited. You've trusted and trusted. You've endured and endured. And you're tired, bone deep, soul tired of being patient. This is real. This is valid. This is human. Patience isn't infinite. It's a resource that can be depleted, and when it's depleted, forcing more patience creates harm. I've hit patience fatigue many times, where one more moment of patience felt impossible, where being told to be patient made me want to scream, where patience felt like self-betrayal. When you hit patience fatigue, you need restoration, not more patience. You need support, not more endurance. You need relief, not more waiting. This might mean taking action even if the timing isn't perfect. It might mean walking away even if more patience might help. It might mean choosing your well-being over continued endurance. Patience fatigue is your soul saying enough, and sometimes enough is exactly right. The key is recognizing the difference between patience fatigue and simple impatience. Fatigue comes after extended patience. Impatience comes from never having been patient at all. If you've been patient for a long time and you're exhausted, honor that exhaustion. Rest from patience. Take a break from endurance. Give yourself permission to be impatient for a while, because patience, like any practice, requires recovery. You can't be patient indefinitely any more than you can run indefinitely. There must be rest. There must be restoration. There must be renewal. When patience becomes self-harm, it's no longer patience. It's something else wearing patience's mask. Let's talk about the fruits of patience. Because while patience is difficult, its rewards are extraordinary. The first fruit is peace. Not the temporary peace of getting what you want, but the deep peace of trusting life's timing. The peace of knowing you don't have to force everything. The peace of allowing rather than demanding. This peace is different from happiness. Happiness comes and goes based on circumstances, but peace developed through patience remains steady regardless of conditions. It's an inner stability that external chaos can't destroy. The second fruit is wisdom. Patience gives you perspective that impatience never could. When you're not rushing, you see patterns. When you're not forcing, you understand flow. When you're not demanding, you recognize gifts. Every patient person becomes wise eventually, not because they're smarter, but because they've observed more. They've allowed life to teach them instead of trying to teach life. The third fruit is strength. Real strength. Not the brittle strength of force, but the flexible strength of bamboo. The strength to bend without breaking. The strength to endure without hardening. The strength to stay soft in a harsh world. Patient people can withstand storms that break the impatient, because they're not rigid. They're not fighting. They're moving with forces instead of against them. The fourth fruit is trust. When you've practiced patience and seen its results, you develop unshakable trust in divine timing. You know from experience that delays have purpose. You know from living that everything arrives when it should. This trust changes everything. It ends anxiety about the future. It stops the constant questioning of when. It creates a deep knowing that what's meant for you won't miss you. The fifth fruit is love. Patience creates space for love to grow. It allows for deep connection. It enables real intimacy. It makes possible the kind of love that transforms rather than just satisfies. Every great love story is really a patience story. The patience to see someone fully. The patience to be seen. The patience to grow together. The patience to stay. Now, I want to share the ultimate secret of patience. Patience isn't about time at all. It's about trust. When you trust completely, time becomes irrelevant. When you know something is coming, waiting doesn't feel like waiting. When you're certain of the outcome, the timeline doesn't matter. Think about ordering something online that you know will arrive. You don't spend every moment anxiously waiting. You go about your life, trusting it's coming. That's patience. Not suffering through waiting, but trusting while living. The Creator operates the same way. Everything you need is already in motion. Every prayer has been heard. Every genuine need will be met. Every purpose will be fulfilled, but not on your timeline, on the perfect timeline. Not when you think you're ready, when you actually are. Not how you imagined, how it needs to be. When you truly understand this, patience stops being difficult. It becomes natural, because you're not waiting for something that might not come. You're trusting in what's already guaranteed. This doesn't mean everything you want will happen. It means everything you need will arrive. And often what you need is the patience to discover what you really need. The deepest patience comes from the deepest trust. Trust in divine wisdom. Trust in perfect timing. Trust that your life is unfolding exactly as it should, even when, especially when, you can't see it. Let me close with this. Patience is not a virtue you achieve. It's a practice you maintain. Every day, every moment, you choose patience or impatience. You choose trust or force. You choose flow or resistance. Some days, patience will feel impossible. Choose it anyway. Some moments, impatience will seem justified. Pause anyway. Some seasons, waiting will feel eternal. Trust anyway. Because on the other side of patience is everything you're seeking. Not because patience magically manifests desires, but because patience transforms you into someone who can receive what's being offered. The impatient person is a closed fist, unable to receive. The patient person is an open hand, ready for gifts. The impatient person is noise, unable to hear guidance. The patient person is silence, available for wisdom. Everything changes when you change your relationship with time, when you stop fighting it and start flowing with it, when you stop demanding and start trusting, when you stop forcing and start allowing. This isn't passive. This isn't weak. This is the ultimate strength. The strength to trust life's perfect timing. The strength to stay steady in uncertainty. The strength to keep planting when harvest seems impossible. Your impatience is costing you everything: peace, your presence, your power. Your patience will give you everything, not immediately, but inevitably. The seed knows this. It doesn't panic in the darkness underground. It trusts the process. It does its part, absorbing nutrients, sending out roots, gathering strength. Then it waits for the right moment to break through. You're that seed. Your life is that process. Your patience is that trust. But let me go even deeper. Let me share dimensions of patience you might not have considered. Because patience isn't just one thing. It's 1,000 different practices woven into the fabric of a meaningful life. Let me tell you about patience in learning. Real learning, not memorization, not information consumption, but the deep integration of wisdom, requires a patience that our educational system never taught us. We're trained to learn quickly, pass the test, get the grade, move to the next level. But wisdom doesn't work that way. Understanding doesn't follow semester schedules. Integration doesn't happen on deadline. Consider learning a new language as an adult. Everyone says adults learn languages slowly, that children have an advantage. But that's not entirely true. Children have one advantage. They're patient with not knowing. They don't judge themselves for making mistakes. They don't rush to fluency. There's wisdom from experienced polyglots who speak multiple languages. They suggest giving yourself 10 years to learn a language. 10 years, no rush, no pressure, just daily patience with not knowing, slowly becoming knowing. 10 years? The impatient mind recoils. But here's the truth. In 10 years of patience, you actually learn the language. In 1 year of rushing, you learn to pretend you know the language. Which would you prefer? So I changed my approach. Instead of racing to fluency, I practiced patient immersion. A few words a day, one conversation a week, comfortable with understanding 10%, then 20%, then 30%, patient with my terrible accent, patient with my limited vocabulary, patient with the long journey to fluency. 3 years in, something clicked. Not fluency, but flow. The patience had created space for natural acquisition. The pressure-free approach had allowed my brain to absorb rather than force. The decade timeline had removed the anxiety that blocks learning. This applies to every kind of learning. The instrument that takes years to play beautifully. The craft that takes decades to master. The wisdom that takes a lifetime to embody. Our impatience with learning creates surface knowledge. We know a little about everything but understand nothing deeply. We can quote facts but can't apply wisdom. We have information but lack integration. Real learning requires the patience to not know for a long time. The patience to be a beginner when everyone else seems advanced. The patience to go deep when everyone else is going broad. The patience to master fundamentals when everyone else is chasing advanced techniques. Think about martial arts masters. They practice the same basic movements for decades, the same form thousands of times, not because they haven't learned it, but because they're still learning it. Every repetition reveals new depth. Every practice opens new understanding. That's learning patience. The willingness to stay with something long after the initial excitement fades, long after progress becomes invisible, long after everyone else has moved on to the next shiny thing. Now, let me talk about patience with truth, because truth doesn't reveal itself all at once. It comes in layers, each one requiring the patience to integrate before the next is revealed. We want truth to be simple, black and white, clear and immediate. This is right, that is wrong. This is true, that is false. But reality is more patient than our categories. Truth is more nuanced than our need for certainty. I spent years seeking the truth, reading every philosophy, studying every religion, following every teacher. I was impatient for ultimate understanding, for final answers, for complete clarity. But truth doesn't work that way. Truth is like an onion. You peel one layer, thinking you've reached the center, only to find another layer, and another, and another. Each layer is true, but not the whole truth. Each understanding is valid, but not complete. The patience to hold partial truth while seeking fuller truth, this is wisdom. The patience to live with questions while searching for answers. This is maturity. The patience to not know while continuing to learn. This is growth. I learned something that seemed absolutely true at 20. By 30, I saw it was only partially true. By 40, I understood it was true in some contexts, but not others. By 50, I realized it was one facet of a much larger truth I'm still discovering. Was I wrong at 20? No. I had the truth I could handle at 20. But truth grows with our capacity to understand it. Capacity develops through patient experience, not rushed consumption. Think about how a child understands death versus how an adult understands it versus how an elder understands it. Same reality, different depths of truth. The child isn't wrong. They just have child-level truth. The elder isn't finished. They're still discovering elder-level truth. This requires patience with your own understanding. Patience with the fact that what you know now will seem simplistic later. Patience with the reality that you're always seeing through a glass darkly, never face to face. It also requires patience with others' truth. The person who sees differently isn't necessarily wrong. They might be seeing a different layer. The teaching that seems contradictory might be addressing a different level. The wisdom that makes no sense might be for a stage you haven't reached. Truth patience means holding your beliefs lightly, not without conviction, but without rigidity, knowing that further revelation is always possible, understanding that truth is not a possession but a pursuit. Let me share about patience in the ordinary. Because we often think patience is for big things, waiting for career breakthrough, relationship resolution, spiritual awakening. But most of patience is practiced in the utterly ordinary moments of daily life. The patience to prepare a meal properly instead of rushing through it. The patience to have a real conversation instead of a hurried exchange, the patience to walk somewhere instead of always driving, the patience to read a book instead of skimming an article. These seem small, insignificant, but they're not. They're the training ground for greater patience. They're where patience becomes habit rather than effort. I started practicing what I call micro-patience, deliberately choosing the slower option in small things. Making tea with loose leaves instead of bags, writing by hand instead of typing, taking stairs instead of elevators. Each choice was tiny, almost insignificant, but together they rewired my relationship with time. They broke my addiction to efficiency. They taught me that faster isn't always better. In fact, it rarely is. The patience to fold laundry mindfully. The patience to listen to a song completely. The patience to watch a sunset without photographing it. The patience to eat without multitasking. These micro practices create macro transformation. Because here's what I discovered. How you do anything is how you do everything. If you're impatient with small things, you'll be impatient with big things. If you rush through ordinary moments, you'll rush through extraordinary ones. But if you practice patience in the mundane, you'll have patience for the meaningful. If you can be present with boredom, you can be present with beauty. If you can wait in a grocery line without agitation, you can wait for life-changing opportunities without anxiety. The ordinary is where patience is built, not in the dramatic moments of waiting for test results or job offers or proposal responses, but in the 1,000 tiny moments of daily life where you choose presence over progress, being overdoing, depth over speed. Now, let me tell you about patience in crisis, because when everything is falling apart, when urgency is screaming, when action seems mandatory, that's when patience becomes not just valuable but vital. Crisis creates panic. Panic creates poor decisions. Poor decisions create more crisis. It's a vicious cycle that only patience can break. I've been through several life crises, health scares, financial collapses, relationship implosions, and in each one, my first instinct was to act immediately, do something, anything, fix it now. But crisis patience taught me something counterintuitive. The more urgent something feels, the more patience it usually requires. The bigger the crisis, the more important it is to pause before acting. There's a teaching that says when your house is on fire, that's the most important time to move slowly and deliberately, because panicked action in crisis often makes things worse. The person who runs frantically might run into danger. The person who moves with patient awareness finds the safe exit. I remember a financial crisis that felt like the world ending. Every instinct screamed, "Act now! Take any job! Sell everything! Borrow money!" The urgency was overwhelming. The pressure was crushing. Instead, I forced myself to be patient, to sit with the crisis without immediately reacting, to feel the fear without being controlled by it, to assess the situation without panic. That patience revealed options I couldn't see in panic, solutions that only became visible in stillness, help that only arrived when I stopped desperately grabbing. The crisis resolved not through frantic action, but through patient response. This doesn't mean being passive in crisis. It means being patient enough to respond rather than react, patient enough to think rather than panic, patient enough to see clearly rather than thrash blindly. Crisis patience is perhaps the hardest kind, because everything in you wants to move fast. Society expects immediate action. People question your stillness. "Why aren't you doing something?" they ask. But patient crisis response is doing something. You're doing the most important thing, avoiding making the crisis worse through panicked action. You're creating space for wisdom to emerge. You're allowing solutions to present themselves. The surgeon doesn't rush because the patient is critical. They slow down, become more deliberate, more precise. The pilot doesn't panic when engines fail. They methodically work through procedures. The sage doesn't frantically react to chaos. They patiently respond from center. Let me tell you about patience with your calling. Different from purpose, your calling is that deep pull towards something greater than yourself. It requires a patience that can span decades. A calling isn't a career. It's not a role or a title or a position. It's a magnetic pull toward a certain kind of contribution, and it rarely reveals itself clearly or quickly. Consider someone who feels called to work with orphans from age 12 years old, and they know, but life has other plans. College, marriage, their own children, career demands, financial necessities. For 30 years, that calling sits quietly in their heart, waiting. They could force it, abandon everything to chase it immediately, but they have the patience to let life prepare them for their calling, to gain skills they'll need to develop emotional maturity, to build resources, to raise their own children first. At 42, the way opens, not dramatically, subtly, a connection here, an opportunity there. Piece by piece, the path to working with orphans emerges, but it emerges because they're ready, not just willing. The 30-year wait wasn't delay, it was preparation. Your calling requires this kind of patience, the patience to hold it without forcing it, the patience to prepare without knowing how you're preparing, the patience to trust that when the time is right, the way will open. But we live in a world that says, follow your passion now. Don't wait. Life is short. And yes, life is short. But a calling isn't something you chase. It's something you grow into. And growth takes time. The calling you feel at 20 might be the seed of what you'll do at 50. The dream that seems impossible at 30 might be inevitable at 60. The contribution you're meant to make might require decades of preparation you don't even recognize as preparation. This patience with calling requires tremendous faith. Faith that the calling is real even when the path is invisible. Faith that you're being prepared even when you feel stuck. Faith that divine timing knows better than human impatience. Let me share something about patience and abundance. Because true abundance, not just money, but the felt sense of enough, only comes through patience. We chase abundance impatiently. More money, more success, more recognition, more stuff. Always more, always faster, always now. But this impatient chasing creates scarcity, not abundance. The more desperately we grab, the less we feel we have. Real abundance comes through patient cultivation. Like a garden that gets richer each year, like a friendship that deepens over time, like wisdom that compounds through experience. I used to live in scarcity consciousness even when I had enough, always worried about running out, always focused on what was missing, always impatient for more without even knowing what more meant. Then I learned about patience and abundance. That abundance isn't about having more, it's about appreciating what's already here, and appreciation requires patience. The patience to actually see what you have, the patience to actually receive what's being given, the patience to actually enjoy what's present. I started a simple practice. Every morning, before rushing into the day, I'd spend 10 patient minutes acknowledging abundance, not wishing for it, recognizing it. The abundance of breath, the abundance of sunlight, the abundance of possibility in a new day. This patience with recognizing abundance changed everything. Not my circumstances, my perception. And perception creates reality more than circumstances ever could. The patient person sees abundance everywhere. The impatient person sees scarcity everywhere. Same world, different eyes. And those eyes are trained through patience or impatience. But here's the paradox. When you're patient with what you have, more comes. When you're grateful for current abundance, greater abundance arrives. When you stop chasing more and start appreciating enough, enough becomes plenty. This isn't mystical, it's practical. The patient person makes better financial decisions. They invest instead of spending. They build instead of consuming. They create value instead of extracting it. Their patience literally creates abundance. The impatient person, even with millions, feels poor. The patient person, even with little, feels rich. Because abundance isn't about amount, it's about appreciation. And appreciation requires the patience to actually experience what you have. Now, let me talk about patience with your body's messages. Because your body is constantly communicating, but it speaks slowly, subtly, and only to those patient enough to listen. We override body wisdom with mental impatience. Push through fatigue. Ignore early warning signs. Medicate symptoms without addressing causes. Then wonder why we have health crises that came out of nowhere. But nothing comes out of nowhere. The heart attack was preceded by years of stress signals. The breakdown was telegraphed by months of exhaustion. The illness was whispered before it was screamed. The body speaks in whispers first. Subtle tension, mild discomfort, slight fatigue. But if you're impatient, you miss the whispers. You only hear the screams. And by then, the message has become a crisis. I learned this through injury, pushing through pain until my body forced me to stop. The injury that took months to heal could have been prevented by days of rest when I first felt the whisper, but I was too impatient to listen to whispers. Now, I practice what I call body patience. When my body whispers tiredness, I rest before it screams exhaustion. When it hints at hunger, I eat before it demands. When it suggests movement, move before it insists. This requires patience with inefficiency. Sometimes my body wants rest when my mind wants productivity. Sometimes it wants stillness when I have plans. Sometimes it wants food when it's inconvenient. The patience to honor these needs, even when they don't align with mental agendas, is health. But we live in a culture that celebrates overriding body wisdom. Push through the pain. Sleep when you're dead. Mind over matter. As if the body is an enemy to be conquered rather than an ally to be partnered with. Your body has its own intelligence, its own timing, its own wisdom. It knows when to heal. It knows when to rest. It knows when to move. But it can only share this wisdom with those patient enough to listen. The patience to honor your body's timeline for healing. The patience to respect its need for rest. The patience to trust its signals. This isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Because your body is the vehicle for everything else you want to do. Maintaining it with patience is the foundation for every other achievement. Let me tell you about patience with mystery. Because life is fundamentally mysterious, and demanding that mystery resolve itself into clarity is like demanding the ocean become a puddle. We're uncomfortable with mystery. We want answers, explanations, clarity, understanding. We want to know why things happen, how things work, what things mean. And when we can't know, we either make up answers or drive ourselves crazy seeking them. But some things are meant to remain mysterious. Some questions don't have answers, at least not answers we can grasp with our current consciousness. Some experiences can't be explained. Some realities can't be understood. The patience to live with mystery, to be comfortable with not knowing, to find peace in the undefined. This is spiritual maturity. I spent years trying to understand why certain things happened in my life. Why that loss? Why that betrayal? Why that suffering? I demanded answers from the universe. I was impatient with mystery. But the universe doesn't owe us explanations. Life doesn't come with an answer key. Reality is under no obligation to make sense to our limited perception. When I finally developed patience with mystery, something beautiful happened. I stopped needing to understand everything. I stopped demanding that life explain itself. I stopped requiring that everything makes sense. This patience with mystery opened me to wonder, to awe, to the recognition that I'm part of something so vast, so complex, so magnificent that my little mind could never grasp it all. And that's not a problem, it's a gift. The impatient person needs to solve every mystery. The patient person can dance with mystery. The impatient person is frustrated by the unknown. The patient person is fascinated by it. Think about the greatest mysteries: consciousness, love, death, purpose, the divine. Thousands of years of human seeking, and they remain mysterious, not because we're not smart enough, but because mystery is their nature. They're not problems to be solved, but realities to be experienced. Patience with mystery doesn't mean giving up seeking. It means seeking with humility, knowing that some doors open only when we stop pounding on them, some answers come only when we stop demanding them. Some mysteries reveal themselves only to those patient enough to live with not knowing. Stop digging yourself up to check if you're growing. You are. Stop forcing your timeline on divine timing. It knows better. Stop confusing movement with progress. Sometimes stillness is the most progressive thing you can do. The farmer was right. The hardest work happens underground, in the dark, where nobody can see it. That's where you are right now. Not stuck, but developing. Not delayed, but preparing. Not forgotten, but becoming. Trust the process. Trust the timing. Trust that every moment of patience is building something beautiful, even when, especially when, you can't see it yet. Because one day, and that day might be sooner than you think, you'll break through the surface. You'll see what all that patient darkness was creating. You'll understand why it took exactly as long as it took, and you'll be grateful, not just for what grew, but for the patience that let it grow. Not just for the arrival, but for the journey. Not just for the answer, but for the questioning that led to real knowing. That's the promise of patience. Not that you'll get everything you want, but that you'll become everything you're meant to be. Not that life will be easy, but that it will be meaningful. Not that you'll never wait, but that waiting will never be wasted. So be patient, my friend, with life, with others, with yourself. Be patient with the process, patient with the timing, patient with the unfolding. Your life is not behind schedule. You're not missing anything. You're not too late or too slow or too stuck. You're exactly where you need to be, learning exactly what you need to learn, becoming exactly who you need to become. Trust that. Rest in that. Be patient with that. The harvest is coming. It always does for those who plant with patience and trust with faith. Your season is approaching. Your moment is preparing. Your breakthrough is building. All you have to do is what the seed does. Stay planted, keep growing, and trust the intelligence of your own becoming. That's patience. That's power. That's peace. And it's available to you right now. Not tomorrow. Not when things get easier. Now, take a deep breath. Feel your feet on the ground. Notice this moment. This is patience. You're doing it right now. You've been doing it all along. You just needed someone to remind you that waiting is not weakness. It's the ultimate strength. The strength to trust life's perfect timing. And life's timing is always perfect, even when, especially when, we can't see it yet. Be patient. The best is yet to come. Not because I say so, but because that's how reality works. Seeds become forests. Patience becomes power. Waiting becomes wisdom. And you, in your patience, become who you were always meant to be. But wait, I'm not done with you yet. Because there's more to this story. More to patience than even what I've shared. Let me take you deeper into what I've learned about the architecture of waiting, the science of timing, and the sacred art of allowing life to unfold. You see, after that first conversation with the farmer, I became obsessed with patience, not just practicing it, but understanding it. Why does it work? What happens in the waiting? Why is timing so crucial to everything that matters? I started studying everyone who exhibited unusual patience. Artists who spent years on single works. scientists who dedicated decades to one question, couples who'd been married 60 years, children learning to walk, nature itself in all its unhurried wisdom, and patterns emerged. Patterns that changed how I see everything. First pattern: patience creates quality that speed can never achieve. Think about wine. You can't rush fermentation. You can add chemicals, manipulate temperature, try to force the process, but the result will never match wine that's been allowed its proper time. The waiting isn't empty. It's when the magic happens. The same is true for everything worthwhile. A friendship that develops over years has depths that a rushed connection never will. A skill developed through patient practice has nuance that crash courses can't provide. A decision made after patient consideration has wisdom that impulsive choices lack. I learned this writing. I used to force myself to finish pieces in one sitting. Push through, get it done, ship it. The writing was competent but lifeless. Now I let pieces mature. I write, then wait, return, revise, wait again. Sometimes a piece sits for months before it's ready. The waiting isn't procrastination. It's fermentation. Ideas connecting in the subconscious. Perspectives shifting with time. Understanding deepening through patience. When I finally release something that's been given proper time, it has a quality that forced work never achieves. It has life in it, truth in it. It resonates because it was allowed to ripen rather than forced to appear. This applies to everything you create, every project, every relationship, every aspect of your life. When you give things their proper time, they develop qualities that rushing prevents. Second pattern: patience reveals truth that impatience obscures. When you're impatient, you see what you want to see. You project your urgency onto situations. You misread signals because you're desperate for particular outcomes. You mistake noise for signal because you need something to be happening. But when you're patient, truth emerges. People reveal who they really are. Situations show their actual nature. Opportunities distinguish themselves from distractions. The fog of urgency clears, and reality becomes visible. I experienced this hiring someone for my team. My impatience said, "Hire them now. They seem great. Don't lose them to another offer." But something in me counseled patience, so I waited, extended the interview process, asked them to do a small project together. In that extended time, without the pressure of immediate decision, their true nature emerged. The charm was surface. The competence was performed. The fit was imagined. What seemed perfect in the urgency turned out to be completely wrong with patience. If I had hired from impatience, it would have been a disaster. The patience saved me from months of problems, but more importantly, it taught me this: truth needs time to reveal itself. This is especially true with people. Everyone can perform for a short time. Everyone can maintain a mask briefly. Patience outlasts performance. Time reveals truth. The patient observer sees what the impatient rusher misses. Third pattern: patience aligns you with larger forces. When you're impatient, you're fighting everything. Fighting time, fighting natural processes, fighting the flow of life. You're trying to impose your small will on vast systems. It's exhausting and usually futile, but when you're patient, you start aligning with forces larger than yourself. Natural rhythms, universal patterns, divine timing. Instead of fighting the current, you're flowing with it. Instead of forcing doors, you're finding the ones already opening. I learned this trying to build something. For months, I pushed and pushed, forced meetings, chased opportunities, tried to make things happen through sheer will. Nothing worked. Every door stayed closed. Every effort met resistance. Finally, exhausted from pushing, I stopped. Not gave up, stopped forcing. I continued preparing, continued developing, continued showing up. But I released the desperate urgency. I practiced patience. And then something interesting happened. Opportunities started finding me. Doors started opening without my pushing. The right people appeared at the right times. What I'd been trying to force for months happened naturally in weeks. This isn't magical thinking. It's practical physics. When you stop creating resistance through impatience, you start noticing natural openings. When you stop making noise through forcing, you start hearing guidance. When you stop pushing against the current, you start flowing with it. Patience aligns you with timing greater than your own. And that timing knows things you don't know, sees connections you can't see, orchestrates meetings you couldn't arrange. Let me tell you about patience and fear, because at the root of most impatience is fear. Fear that opportunities won't come again. Fear that time is running out. Fear that others are getting ahead. Fear that waiting means missing out. Fear that patience means falling behind. But here's what I've discovered. Impatience is fear's strategy to create more fear. When you act from impatience, you make fear-based decisions. Those decisions create problematic outcomes. Those outcomes validate the fear, which creates more impatience, which creates more fear-based decisions. It's a vicious cycle. Patience breaks this cycle. When you choose patience despite fear, something shifts. The fear might still be there, but it's not driving. You might still feel urgency, but you're not controlled by it. You might still want things to happen faster, but you're not forcing them. I had terrible financial fear. Fear of not having enough. Fear of falling behind. Fear of poverty. This fear created financial impatience. I'd grab at any opportunity to make money, take any client, accept any terms. The impatience was supposedly protecting me from poverty, but the impatience was creating poverty. Bad clients meant bad work, meant bad reputation, meant fewer opportunities, meant financial struggle, meant more fear, meant more impatience. Finally, I decided to practice financial patience despite the fear, to say no to wrong opportunities even when scared, to wait for right ones even when bills were due, to trust patience would lead to abundance even when evidence suggested otherwise. It was terrifying. The fear screamed that I was being foolish, that patience was a luxury I couldn't afford, that waiting meant starving. But I held to patience anyway, and slowly, everything changed. Better clients appeared, better work emerged, better reputation developed, better opportunities arrived. The patience created what impatience had been preventing: actual financial stability. The fear didn't disappear immediately, but its power diminished, because I had evidence now. Evidence that patience works even when, especially when, you're afraid. Now, let's talk about patience and anger, because impatience and anger are intimate companions. Think about the last time you were really angry, not annoyed or frustrated, genuinely angry. I bet impatience was involved. Someone wasn't changing fast enough. Something wasn't happening quickly enough. Life wasn't conforming to your timeline. Anger is often impatience wearing a different mask. It's the rage of not being able to control timing, the fury of things not happening when you demand, the violence of trying to force what won't be forced. I had an anger problem, hair-trigger temper, 0 to rage instantly. I thought it was about various triggers: disrespect, incompetence, injustice, but underneath every trigger was impatience. Impatience with people not being who I wanted them to be. Impatience with situations not resolving how I wanted. Impatience with life not conforming to my timeline. When I started practicing patience, the anger started dissolving. Not immediately, that would be ironic, but gradually, as patience became my default, anger lost its fuel. Without impatience to feed it, anger couldn't sustain itself. Now, when I feel anger rising, I recognize it as an impatient signal. Something in me is trying to force timing. Something is demanding immediate change. Something is fighting what is. So I pause. I breathe. I ask, what am I being impatient with here? Usually, it's something that needs time, someone's growth, some situation's resolution, some processes unfolding. The anger is just impatience throwing a tantrum. When you develop patience, anger becomes information instead of reaction. It tells you where you're fighting reality, where you're demanding the impossible, where you're trying to force what needs time. I want to talk about patience with your past, because most of us are impatient with our own history. We want to be over things immediately. We want to have learned the lessons already. We want our past processed, integrated, healed. Yesterday, we're impatient with our own integration timeline. But the past doesn't heal on demand. Trauma doesn't resolve because you've scheduled it. Integration doesn't happen because you've read the right books. The psyche has its own timeline for processing experience. I spent years being impatient with my healing, demanding that I should be over it by now, frustrated that the same patterns kept appearing, angry that growth was so slow. The impatience with healing was preventing healing, because healing requires feeling, and feeling takes time. You can't rush through grief to get to acceptance. You can't speed through anger to get to forgiveness. You can't fast forward through fear to get to trust. Each feeling needs its full expression before transformation. When I finally became patient with my own healing timeline, healing accelerated. Not because patience makes things faster, but because patience stops creating additional wounds. When you're impatient with healing, you're adding shame to pain. When you're patient, there's just the original wound healing at its natural pace. Your past took time to create. It will take time to integrate. Your wounds, time to form. They'll take time to heal. Your patterns, time to establish. They'll take time to change. Being patient with your past doesn't mean accepting dysfunction. It means understanding that real healing happens in layers, in seasons, in its own sacred timing. You can't rush resurrection. You can't force transformation. You can't demand that your past release you on your timeline, but you can be patient with the process. You can trust the intelligence of your own psyche. You can honor the pace of your own becoming. Let's go deeper into patience and creativity, because the creative process might be the ultimate teacher of patience. Every creative act begins in darkness, an idea gestating invisibly, a vision forming slowly, a possibility gathering force. This dark period, before anything is visible, before anything is certain, this requires tremendous patience. Most people abandon creative projects in this darkness. Nothing's happening. Nothing's emerging. It feels like wasting time. So they quit and start something new, hoping for immediate creative gratification. But creativity doesn't work that way. The darkness is where creation happens. The nothing is where something forms. The emptiness is where fullness gathers. I learned this writing a book. For months, nothing. I'd sit at my desk, show up faithfully, and produce garbage. Everything felt forced, false, flat. My impatience screamed, "This isn't working. Try something else. You're wasting time." But I remembered the farmer's words about seeds in darkness. So I kept showing up, kept sitting with the nothing, kept being patient with the creative darkness. Then one morning, it broke, not gradually, suddenly, like a dam bursting. The book poured out fully formed, not perfect, but alive, not forced, but flowing. The months of nothing hadn't been nothing. They'd been invisible preparation. This is how creativity actually works. Long periods of apparent nothing punctuated by sudden emergence. The patience to endure the nothing is what enables the something. But we live in a culture that wants to hack creativity, to force inspiration on demand, to manufacture meaning on schedule. We're impatient with the creative process, trying to skip the darkness and get straight to the light. It doesn't work. You can force content, but you can't force creation. You can manufacture products, but you can't manufacture meaning. You can rush output, but you can't rush art. Real creativity requires the patience to be pregnant with possibility, to carry something invisible for as long as it needs, to trust that gestation is happening even when you feel nothing. Every artist knows this. Every writer knows this. Every parent knows this. Every entrepreneur knows this. The best things emerge in their own time, not yours. Now, I want to explore patience and decision-making, because impatience creates terrible decisions. When you're impatient, you decide from urgency rather than wisdom. You choose from fear rather than clarity. You act from pressure rather than purpose. And these decisions create complications that require years to unravel. Think about the worst decisions you've made, the relationships you shouldn't have entered, the jobs you shouldn't have taken, the commitments you shouldn't have made. How many were made from impatience? From the pressure of, I need to decide now? I made a career decision from impatience. An opportunity appeared with a tight deadline. Decide by Friday or it's gone. My gut said wait. My fear said grab. Impatience won. I took it. It was wrong from day one. Wrong fit, wrong values, wrong direction. But I'd committed. So I spent 2 years trying to make wrong right. 2 years of force. 2 years of suffering. All because I couldn't be patient enough to wait for right. The opportunity that seemed so urgent, there have been dozens since. Better ones. Right ones. The scarcity that impatience created was an illusion. There's always another opportunity. Usually a better one if you're patient enough to wait for it. Now, when faced with urgent decisions, I have a rule. If it has to be decided immediately, the answer is no. Real opportunities don't require immediate decision. Real relationships don't demand instant commitment. Real paths don't close after arbitrary deadlines. Patience in decision-making isn't about being slow or indecisive. It's about giving decisions the time they deserve. Small decisions can be quick, but life-changing decisions need time to marinate. They need to be felt, not just thought. They need to be lived with before being lived out. When you're patient with decisions, you make fewer but better ones. You choose from clarity rather than urgency. You commit from conviction rather than pressure. These patient decisions create lives of intention rather than lives of reaction. I need to tell you about patience and comparison, because comparison is impatience with your own timeline based on observing others' timelines. Social media has weaponized comparison. Everyone's highlight reel makes your behind-the-scenes look pathetic. Everyone seems to be achieving faster, growing quicker, succeeding sooner. The comparison creates impatience with your own pace. They started after me, but they're ahead of me. They're younger but more successful. They're the same age but further along. This comparison-driven impatience is poisonous. It makes you abandon your path to chase theirs. It makes you force your timeline to match theirs. It makes you measure your insides against their outsides. But here's what comparison doesn't show you: their full journey, their hidden struggles, their private prices, their actual timeline versus their public presentation. I used to compare myself to someone in my field who seemed to achieve everything effortlessly. Younger than me, but more successful. Started later, but progressed faster. Everything they touched turned to gold while I struggled for copper. The comparison created brutal impatience with myself. Why was I so slow? What was wrong with me? Why couldn't I achieve at their pace? Then I learned their full story. The mental breakdown hidden behind success. The relationships sacrificed for achievement. The health destroyed by unsustainable pace. The success that looked like blessing but felt like curse. They weren't ahead of me. They were on a completely different path, with different costs, different rewards, different timelines, different destinations. Comparison assumes everyone's running the same race, but we're not. We're each on unique journeys with unique purposes requiring unique timing. Your timeline isn't slow, it's yours. Their timeline isn't fast, it's theirs. When you're patient with your own timeline, comparison loses its power. You stop measuring yourself against others and start measuring yourself against yourself. You stop racing others and start running your own race. Let's talk about patience and perfectionism, because perfectionism is really impatience with process. The perfectionist wants to skip from beginner to master instantly. They want to bypass the messy middle where most learning happens. They're impatient with their own imperfection, demanding immediate excellence. This impatience with imperfection prevents development, because development requires being bad before being good. It requires producing garbage before producing gold. It requires falling before flying. I was paralyzed by perfectionism for years. Couldn't start because I couldn't guarantee excellence. Couldn't continue because results weren't immediately perfect. Couldn't finish because nothing met my impossible standards. The perfectionism seemed like high standards, but it was really impatience. Impatience with the learning process. Impatience with gradual improvement. Impatience with the time excellence actually takes. When I started practicing patience with imperfection, everything changed. I could start badly. I could continue imperfectly. I could finish incompletely, because I understood that perfection isn't a starting point. It's a distant destination that requires patient travel through imperfection. Now I practice what I call patient imperfection. I do things badly on purpose. I share work before it's ready. I allow myself to be seen learning, not from lowered standards, but from patience with process. The paradox is that patience with imperfection creates excellence faster than perfectionism ever could. Because you're actually doing, rather than waiting to be ready, you're actually learning rather than planning to learn. You're actually improving rather than demanding immediate mastery. Every master was once a disaster, but they were patient with their disaster phase. They didn't quit because they weren't immediately excellent. They continued patiently through incompetence toward competence. Now, I want to address patience and aging, because aging might be the ultimate patience test. We live in a culture that's impatient with aging. We want to stop it, reverse it, deny it. We're impatient with our body's natural timeline. We're fighting time itself, but aging is patient. It happens at its own pace regardless of our impatience. Fighting it doesn't slow it. Denying it doesn't stop it. The impatience just adds suffering to a natural process. I started noticing aging in my 30s. Nothing dramatic, just small signals. Recovery took longer. Energy wasn't infinite. Memory wasn't quite as sharp. My impatience wanted to reverse it immediately, to hack aging, to optimize away the decline. But then I started observing people who aged beautifully, not the ones who looked youngest, but the ones who seemed most alive. They had something in common: patience with aging. They weren't resigned to decline. They were participating in transformation. They understood that aging isn't just loss, it's also gain, not just ending, also becoming, not just decline, also distillation. When you're patient with aging, you stop fighting your body and start collaborating with it. You stop demanding it perform like it's 20 and start appreciating what it can do now. You stop mourning what's lost and start discovering what's emerging. Aging with patience doesn't mean giving up. It means working with reality rather than against it. It means optimizing what's possible rather than demanding the impossible. It means finding new forms of vitality rather than trying to recreate old ones. The patience to age gracefully is the patience to remain curious about who you're becoming rather than desperate about who you're no longer. I want to explore patience and learning, because real learning requires extraordinary patience. We've been conditioned to expect instant understanding. Google any question, get immediate answers. Watch a tutorial, acquire instant skill. Read a summary, claim knowledge. We're impatient with the actual process of deep learning, but real learning, the kind that transforms rather than just informs, requires patience. It requires sitting with confusion, living with questions, embracing not knowing, allowing understanding to emerge rather than forcing it to appear. I decided to learn a new language in my 40s. Everyone said adults can't really learn languages. The brain isn't plastic enough. The window has closed. But I suspected the real issue wasn't neurological, it was patience. Children learning language don't understand everything immediately. They live in confusion for years. They make mistakes constantly. They don't understand most of what they hear, but they're patient with not understanding. They don't quit because it's hard. So I practiced childlike patience. I sat in conversations understanding nothing. I made embarrassing mistakes daily. I spent months feeling stupid. But I stayed patient with the confusion, trusting that understanding would emerge. And it did. Not suddenly, but gradually. Not completely, but sufficiently. After a year, I could communicate. After 2, I could connect. After 3, I could think in the new language. The patience to be confused was the price of clarity. The patience to be incompetent was the path to competence. The patience to not know was the doorway to knowing. This applies to any learning. Technical skills, emotional intelligence, spiritual wisdom. The impatient learner gets information. The patient learner gets transformation. When you're patient with learning, you stop trying to download understanding and start allowing it to develop. You stop demanding immediate mastery and start enjoying gradual growth. You stop avoiding confusion and start recognizing it as the predecessor to clarity. Let me tell you about patience with systems, because systems don't change quickly, and impatience with systems creates either despair or destruction. Look at any system, educational, political, economic, social. They're all frustrating. They're all broken in various ways. They all need change. But systems have momentum. They have inertia. They have complexity that resists simple solutions. Impatience with systems leads to 2 problematic responses: giving up or blowing up. Either nothing will ever change, why bother, or burn it all down and start over. Both responses come from impatience with the pace of systemic change. But real systemic change requires patient work. It requires showing up consistently even when progress is invisible. It requires working within systems while working to change them. It requires the patience to plant seeds that won't mature in your lifetime. I worked in a broken system for years, every day facing the same dysfunction, the same waste, the same unnecessary suffering. My impatience wanted to quit or destroy, to escape or explode. Instead, I practiced patient systems work, small changes, consistent pressure, building allies, creating alternatives. Not dramatic revolution, but patient evolution. It took 5 years to see significant change. 5 years of patient daily work. 5 years of invisible progress. But the change, when it came, was sustainable because it had been built patiently rather than forced impatiently. Systems are like huge ships. You can't turn them instantly without capsizing. But patient, consistent pressure on the rudder eventually changes direction. The patience to work within while working for change. This is how systems actually transform. Impatience says, change everything now. Patience says, change what you can today. Then tomorrow, change a little more. Impatience creates revolution that often circles back. Patience creates evolution that actually progresses. Now, let's examine patience and trauma, because trauma disrupts your relationship with time, and healing requires restoring patience. Trauma creates a state of permanent urgency. The nervous system stays activated. Everything feels immediate. The past feels present. The body remains ready for threats that already passed. This creates deep impatience, healing with others, with life itself. Trauma says, I need to be safe now. I need to heal now. I need to trust now. But safety, healing, and trust all require patient cultivation. They can't be forced or rushed or demanded into existence. I carried trauma that made patience almost impossible. My nervous system was stuck in urgency mode. Everything felt like an emergency. Waiting felt like danger. Patience felt like vulnerability I couldn't afford. Healing trauma required learning to be patient with my own nervous system, to not demand it calm down immediately, to not force it to feel safe before it was ready, to gradually, patiently teach it that the urgency was outdated. This took years, not months, years of patient practice, years of small steps, years of setbacks and restarts. The impatience wanted quick fixes, dramatic breakthroughs, instant healing. But trauma doesn't heal that way. Trauma heals slowly, in layers, patience. Each layer must be honored. Each protection must be appreciated before it's released. Each wound must be witnessed before it's transformed. When you're patient with trauma healing, you stop re-traumatizing yourself with demands for speed. You stop adding violence to violence by forcing. You start creating the safety that makes healing possible. The patience to heal from trauma is sacred patience. It's honoring your wounds while trusting your wholeness. It's moving toward health at the pace your system can sustain. It's choosing gradual integration over forced resolution. I need to address patience and activism, because fighting for change while practicing patience seems contradictory, but it's not. There's a misconception that patience means acceptance, that being patient with injustice means tolerating it, that patience with problems means not working to solve them. This is wrong. Real patience is strategic. It recognizes that sustainable change takes time while working urgently for that change. It understands that impatient activism often creates backlash, while patient activism creates transformation. Look at any successful movement. It required people with the patience to keep showing up when progress seemed impossible, the patience to continue when victories were minimal, the patience to build rather than just tear down. I've been part of impatient activism, all rage and demands, all urgency and ultimatums. It felt powerful but accomplished little. The impatience created resistance. The demands created defensiveness. The urgency created exhaustion. Then I learned patient activism. Same passion, but different approach. Instead of demanding immediate total change, working for incremental progress instead of rage, sustained pressure. Instead of ultimatums, patient education. This patience doesn't mean accepting injustice. It means understanding that dismantling systems of oppression takes time, that changing hearts takes patience, that building better takes longer than destroying. Patient activism says, this is urgent, and it will take time. It says, we need change now, and we'll keep working however long it takes. It maintains urgency without burning out. It sustains pressure without exhausting. The most effective activists I know combine fierce urgency with deep patience. They work like the change is needed today, while understanding it might take generations. They're impatient with injustice, but patient with progress. Let's explore patience and technology more deeply, because technology has fundamentally rewired our neural pathways for impatience. Every technological advance promises to save time, but instead of creating more patience with the saved time, we fill it with more demands. We don't bank the efficiency. We spend it immediately on increased expectations. Email was supposed to replace slow mail, giving us more time. Instead, it created expectation of instant response. Smartphones were supposed to make communication easier. Instead, they made us available 24/7. Each innovation that should create patience instead creates more impatience. I did a radical experiment. I went back to older technology for a month. Film camera instead of digital. Letters instead of emails. Landline instead of smartphone. Not from nostalgia, but to understand what we've lost. What I discovered. Older technology enforced patience. You couldn't see photos immediately, so you were patient with the process. You couldn't send instant messages, so you were patient with response. You couldn't check anything constantly, so you were patient with not knowing. This forced patience created unexpected benefits. Deeper thinking because I couldn't immediately Google. Better conversations because I couldn't escape to my phone. Stronger memory because I couldn't outsource it to devices. I'm not suggesting we abandon modern technology, but we need to consciously create the patience that technology eliminates. We need to choose delays that technology removes. We need to practice the patience that progress has made optional. This might mean turning off notifications, using airplane mode, scheduling specific times for digital tasks, creating artificial delays that restore natural patience, using technology consciously rather than compulsively. The patience to resist technology's urgency is increasingly rare and increasingly valuable. In a world of instant everything, the person who can wait has enormous advantage. Now, I want to discuss patience and prayer, or meditation, or whatever you call your spiritual practice, because spiritual connection requires a particular kind of patience. Most people approach prayer like a vending machine. Insert request, receive result. When the result doesn't appear immediately, they conclude prayer doesn't work. They're impatient with the sacred, trying to Amazon Prime the divine. But real prayer requires patience that transcends transaction. It's not about getting what you want when you want it. It's about aligning with something greater than your wants. It's about patient presence with the sacred. I used to pray with impatience, listing demands, expecting immediate response, getting frustrated when nothing seemed to happen. The impatience made prayer feel futile. Why bother if nothing changes immediately? Then I learned to pray with patience, to sit in sacred presence without agenda, to offer my concerns without demanding immediate resolution, to trust that every sincere prayer is heard even if not immediately answered. This patient prayer changed everything, not because I got what I wanted faster, but because I started wanting different things. The patience created space for wisdom. The waiting revealed what really mattered. Sometimes prayers are answered immediately. Sometimes they take years to manifest. Sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes the answer is not yet. Sometimes the answer is something you didn't know to ask for. Patient prayer trusts all of these responses. It knows that divine timing isn't human timing, that sacred wisdom sees connections you can't see, that what feels like delay might be protection or preparation. When you pray with patience, you stop treating the divine like customer service and start experiencing actual communion. You stop demanding and start receiving. You stop talking and start listening. The patience to maintain spiritual practice when nothing seems to be happening, this is faith. Not belief in concepts, but trust in process. Not certainty about outcomes, but patience with mystery. I want to talk about patience with mystery, because life is mostly mystery, and impatience with not knowing creates enormous suffering. We want to know everything immediately. Why did this happen? What does this mean? Where is this going? We're impatient with uncertainty, demanding clarity before it's available. But mystery has its own timeline for revelation. Some things you understand immediately. Some take years to comprehend. Some you never fully understand. Being patient with mystery means being comfortable with partial knowledge. I went through something that made no sense, a loss that seemed purposeless, a suffering that seemed meaningless. My impatience demanded immediate understanding. Why? What's the lesson? What's the point? But understanding wouldn't come. The mystery remained mysterious. The senselessness remained senseless. I had to learn to be patient with not knowing why, to live with unanswered questions, to continue without comprehension. Years later, understanding emerged. Not complete understanding, but enough. The loss had created space for something I couldn't have imagined. The suffering had developed qualities I didn't know I needed. The mystery had been protecting a future I couldn't see. If I had forced understanding immediately, I would have invented false meaning. If I had demanded clarity before it was available, I would have created artificial answers. The patience to live with mystery allowed real understanding to emerge in its own time. We're all living with mysteries. Why certain things happened, what certain experiences meant, where certain paths are leading. Patience with these mysteries creates anxiety. Patience with them creates faith. The patience to live with unanswered questions is spiritual maturity. It's trusting that understanding will come when needed, that mysteries will reveal themselves when ready, that not knowing is sometimes the wisest position. Let's examine patience with yourself more deeply, because self-patience might be the hardest patience of all. We're brutal with ourselves, demanding impossible standards, setting unrealistic timelines, beating ourselves up for being human. We give everyone else grace except ourselves. We understand everyone else's struggles except our own. This self-impatience is violence. It's treating yourself worse than you'd treat an enemy. It's demanding from yourself what you'd never demand from someone you love. Was viciously impatient with myself. Every mistake was unforgivable. Every flaw was unacceptable. Every delay was failure. The self-impatience created constant internal war. Was my own worst enemy, my harshest critic, my cruelest judge. Learning self-patience was like learning a new language, the language of self-compassion, the language of self-understanding, the language of treating myself like someone worthy of patience. It started with small acts. When I made a mistake, instead of attack, curiosity. What happened here? When I fell short, instead of judgment, understanding, what do I need? When I moved slowly, instead of criticism, acceptance, this is my pace. The self-patience felt wrong at first, like letting myself off the hook, like lowering standards, like accepting mediocrity. But it wasn't any of these things. It was creating conditions for actual growth rather than just self-punishment. When you're patient with yourself, you stop creating internal resistance. You stop sabotaging your own progress with self-attack. You stop exhausting yourself with internal war. You start working with yourself rather than against yourself. Self-patience doesn't mean no standards. It means realistic standards. It doesn't mean no growth. It means sustainable growth. It doesn't mean accepting dysfunction. It means addressing dysfunction with compassion rather than cruelty. The voice in your head, is it patient or impatient? Is it understanding or demanding? Is it supportive or attacking? That voice shapes everything. When it becomes patient, everything becomes possible. Now, I need to address patience with death, the ultimate patience, the final waiting. We're impatient with death in two ways. Some are impatient for it, wanting escape from suffering. Others are impatient against it, desperate to prevent or delay it. Both impatiences create suffering. Death has its own timeline. It doesn't respond to our impatience. It doesn't care about our preferences. It arrives when it arrives, ready or not. This requires a particular kind of patience, patience with the ultimate uncertainty. I've sat with dying people. Some fight death impatiently, exhausting their final energy and resistance. Others wait for death impatiently, wanting the suffering to end. But some find patience with the process. They're the ones who seem most at peace. This patience with death isn't resignation. It's recognition. Recognition that death is part of life's rhythm, that endings enable beginnings, that mortality gives life meaning. When you're patient with death, your own eventual death, the death of loved ones, the death of everything you know, something shifts. Life becomes more precious because it's temporary. Moments become more meaningful because they're numbered. Connections become more valuable because they're finite. The impatience to prevent death creates desperate grasping. The impatience for death creates premature ending. But patience with death creates presence with life. I learned this watching someone die slowly. My impatience wanted it to be over, for their sake, for mine. But they were patient with their process. They weren't rushing toward death or away from it. They were present, dying. Their patience taught me that death, like birth, has its own intelligence, its own timing, its own purpose. Being patient with death doesn't mean wanting it or not wanting it. It means accepting it as part of the complete experience. I want to explore patience and success more deeply, because our definition of success is often impatience disguised as ambition. Real success is about becoming, not just achieving. It's about developing capacity, not just collecting accomplishments. It's about depth, not just height. And all of these require extraordinary patience. But we've defined success as speed. First to market, youngest to achieve, fastest to millionaire. We celebrate quick success and ignore sustainable success. We worship meteoric rises and forget they usually precede meteoric falls. I chased quick success for years. Every shortcut, every hack, every acceleration technique. And I achieved some quick wins. But they were hollow because they weren't built on solid foundation. They were forced rather than developed. Then I met truly successful people, not just wealthy or famous, but deeply successful, fulfilled, impactful, sustainable. They all had one thing in common. They'd been patient with their development. They didn't rush to the top. They built capacity at each level. They didn't skip steps. They mastered each stage. They didn't force growth. They allowed it to unfold naturally. This patient success takes longer, lasts longer. It's built on competence, not just confidence. On value, not just velocity. On contribution, not just achievement. When you're patient with success, you stop chasing and start building. You stop comparing timelines and start focusing on foundations. You stop rushing toward outcomes and start enjoying process. The paradox is that patient success often arrives faster than impatient success, because you're not constantly starting over. You're not fixing mistakes from rushing. You're not rebuilding what collapsed from poor foundation. Let me tell you about patience and parenting. Because raising humans requires patience that transforms you completely. Children operate on their own timeline. They don't care about your schedule. They don't respect your urgency. They don't understand your impatience. They're perfect teachers of patience because they're naturally patient with their own development. A child learning to walk doesn't get frustrated that they're not running yet. They don't compare themselves to other children. They don't have timeline anxiety. They just keep trying, falling, trying again. Natural patience with process. But parents often bring impatience to parenting, wanting children to develop faster, to understand sooner, to achieve quicker. This impatience creates pressure that actually slows development. I watched a parent trying to teach their child to read, frustrated that progress was slow. Impatient with the pace, comparing to other children. The impatience created anxiety in the child, resistance to learning, fear of failure. Another parent with a similar aged child approached it differently, patient with the process, celebrating small progress. No timeline pressure, that child learned to read joyfully, naturally, sustainably. Parenting with patience doesn't mean no expectations. It means appropriate expectations. It doesn't mean no boundaries. It means boundaries held with patience. It doesn't mean no teaching. It means teaching at the child's pace, not yours. Every parent learns this eventually. You can't rush childhood. You can't accelerate development. You can't force maturity. Children grow at their own pace, and fighting that pace creates problems that take years to resolve. The patience required for parenting changes you. It teaches you that control is illusion, that timing isn't yours to determine, that the most important things can't be rushed, that love is patient, or it isn't love. Now, I want to discuss patience with change, because change is constant, but it rarely happens at the speed we prefer. We want immediate transformation, instant results, overnight success. We're impatient with the pace of change, both in ourselves and in the world. But real change is like erosion, invisible daily but dramatic over time. I wanted to change everything about my life immediately. New habits, new mindset, new results, all by next week. This impatience with change created a cycle of dramatic attempts followed by inevitable failure. Then I learned about patient change, one small adjustment at a time, 1 degree of shift maintained consistently, one tiny improvement compounded daily. It seemed too slow, too small, too insignificant, but patient change accumulates. After a year of 1 degree shifts, you were facing a completely different direction. After a year of tiny improvements, you were dramatically improved. After a year of small steps, you're miles from where you started. The impatience for dramatic change usually prevents any change. The patience for incremental change usually creates dramatic change. It's another paradox of patience. Accepting slow creates fast. This applies to every kind of change. Personal change, relationship change, professional change, social change. The sustainable transformations are the patient ones. The revolutions that last are the ones that happen gradually. When you're patient with change, you stop overwhelming yourself with impossible transformations. You stop failing at dramatic gestures. You start succeeding at small steps. You start building momentum that becomes unstoppable. I need to talk about patience with your body's healing, because the body has its own timeline for repair, and fighting that timeline creates additional damage. Modern medicine has made us impatient with healing. We want instant cures, immediate relief, quick fixes, but the body doesn't heal on demand. It heals on its own schedule, following ancient patterns that can't be rushed. I injured myself badly trying to force physical achievement. The injury should have taken 3 months to heal, but I was impatient. I pushed too hard too soon. I turned a 3-month injury into a 2-year ordeal. The impatience to heal prevented healing. Every time I rushed back to activity, I re-injured myself. Every time I forced progress, I created setback. The body was trying to heal, but I kept interrupting the process. Finally, I surrendered to the body's timeline. I stopped forcing. I stopped rushing. I stopped fighting my own healing. I became patient with the pace of cellular repair, and then healing happened. Not immediately, that would be ironic, but steadily, sustainably, completely. The patience allowed what impatience had been preventing. This applies to all healing: physical healing, emotional healing, mental healing. The body-mind has intelligence about repair that our impatience disrupts. When we force healing, we often prevent it. When we allow healing, we enable it. Being patient with healing doesn't mean passive waiting. It means active cooperation, doing what supports healing without forcing the timeline, creating conditions for repair without demanding immediate results. Let's examine patience with learning from mistakes, because mistakes are teachers, but only if you're patient enough to receive their lessons. When you make a mistake, impatience wants to move on immediately, to forget it happened, to rush past the discomfort. But this impatience prevents learning. The mistake repeats because the lesson wasn't absorbed. I made the same mistake in relationships for years. Different people, same pattern. My impatience wanted to quickly move on to the next relationship without examining what went wrong, without sitting with the discomfort, without extracting the learning. Finally, after another painful ending, I forced myself to be patient with the mistake, to sit with it, to examine it from every angle, to really understand the pattern, to feel the full weight of consequences. This patience was uncomfortable. It would have been easier to distract myself, to jump into something new, to avoid the examination. But the patience revealed patterns I'd been blind to, wounds I'd been avoiding, lessons I'd been missing. When you're patient with mistakes, they become education rather than just pain. They become growth opportunities rather than just failures. They become wisdom rather than just regret. But this requires the patience to stay present with discomfort, to resist the urge to immediately move on, to extract every bit of learning before proceeding, to honor the mistake as teacher rather than just embarrassment. Now, I want to address patience with your purpose, because discovering and living your purpose requires a patience that most people can't sustain. Everyone wants to know their purpose immediately, to have clear direction, to understand their meaning. But purpose doesn't usually announce itself dramatically. It emerges slowly through patient living and observing. I spent years impatiently searching for my purpose, taking assessments, reading books, demanding clarity. The impatience created desperation. The desperation created poor choices. The poor choices led further from purpose, not closer. Then I stopped searching and started living, patiently, presently, openly. I paid attention to what energized me, what felt meaningful, what created flow. Not dramatic revelations, but subtle signals. Over time, years, not weeks, patterns emerged. Themes appeared. Direction clarified. Purpose revealed itself not as a destination, but as a way of traveling. Not as a thing to find, but as a way to be. The patience to live without clear purpose, while purpose clarifies. This takes faith. Faith that you have purpose. Faith that it will reveal itself. Faith that patient attention is more effective than impatient searching. Your purpose might not be what you expect. It might not be grand or glamorous. It might not match your ego's preferences. But when you're patient enough to let it emerge rather than forcing it to appear, it fits perfectly. I want to explore patience with joy, because even joy requires patience. We think joy should be instant, that happiness should be constant, that pleasure should be immediate. We're impatient with the absence of joy, demanding it appear on command. But real joy, deep joy, sustainable joy, it requires patient cultivation. It's not a feeling you can force. It's not a state you can demand. It's an emergence that requires patient preparation. I used to chase joy impatiently. Next experience, next achievement, next acquisition. Always seeking the thing that would finally deliver lasting joy. The impatience created a joy-seeking addiction that prevented actual joy. Then I learned to be patient with joy, to create conditions for it without demanding it, to prepare the soil without forcing the bloom, to trust that joy comes to those who wait with readiness rather than requirement. This patient approach to joy changed everything. Instead of chasing peak experiences, I started noticing quiet contentments. Instead of demanding happiness, I started appreciating peace. Instead of forcing joy, I started allowing it. Joy arrived. Not dramatically, but gently. Not constantly, but regularly. Not as fireworks, but as warm light. The patience created space for joy to emerge naturally rather than being forced artificially. When you're patient with joy, you stop exhausting yourself with the pursuit. You stop creating suffering by demanding happiness. You start recognizing joy in unexpected places. You start experiencing contentment as enough. Let me tell you about patience with grief, because grief has its own timeline that can't be rushed. Society is impatient with grief. We get a few days off work, a few weeks of sympathy. Then the expectation is to move on, to get over it, to return to normal. But grief doesn't follow social timelines. Grief comes in waves. Sometimes, years after loss, a wave hits. The impatient response is to resist it, to judge it, to think, I should be over this by now. But grief needs to move at its own pace. I lost someone important and tried to rush through grief, to process it efficiently, to heal on schedule. The impatience with grief created complicated grief, stuck grief, grief that couldn't complete because it wasn't allowed its natural rhythm. Years later, I had to go back and actually grieve, to be patient with the waves, to let them come when they came, to let them last as long as they lasted, to stop trying to manage grief and start allowing it. This patience with grief was healing. Not comfortable, grief never is, but healing. The patience allowed grief to do its work, to transform loss into love, to change ending into eternal connection. When you're patient with grief, you honor both the loss and the love. You stop trying to get over and start moving through. You stop resisting waves and start riding them. You stop fighting grief and start collaborating with it. Grief is love with nowhere to go. Patience gives it somewhere to go, into memory, meaning, and continued connection. But this transformation can't be rushed. It happens on grief's timeline, not yours. And so, my friend, we come full circle, back to where we started, but with deeper understanding. Patience isn't just waiting. It's not just endurance. It's not just tolerance. It's the fundamental wisdom that aligns you with how reality actually works. Everything meaningful takes time. Everything valuable requires patience. Everything real unfolds gradually. Fighting this truth creates suffering. Accepting it creates peace. Working with it creates power. The seed knows this truth. The child knows it. The artist knows it. The lover knows it. Now you know it too. Your impatience has been costing you everything. Your patience will give you everything. Not immediately. That would violate the very principle we're discussing, but inevitably, certainly, completely. So take a breath. Feel your feet on the ground. Notice this moment. This one. Right now. This is patience. You're doing it. You've been doing it through this entire journey we've taken together. And if you've been patient enough to stay with me this long, through all these words, all these stories, all these teachings, then you already have more patience than you realized. Use it, trust it, let it transform everything it touches. Because patience isn't just a virtue or a practice or a strategy. It's a way of being that aligns you with the deepest intelligence of existence. It's a form of wisdom that knows when to act and when to wait, when to push and when to allow, when to speak, when to listen. In your patience, you become like water, soft but powerful, yielding but persistent, gentle but unstoppable. You learn to work with life instead of against it. You learn to trust timing greater than your own. You learn that everything arrives in its perfect season, including you. The journey of patience never ends. Every day brings new opportunities to practice. Every moment offers the choice between forcing and flowing. Every situation asks, will you trust the process or fight it? Choose trust. Choose flow. Choose patience. Not because it's easy. It's often the hardest thing in the world, but because it works, because it's true, because it transforms both you and everything you touch. The farmer was right all those years ago. The hardest work happens underground, in the dark, where nobody can see it. That's where you are whenever you practice patience. That's where the real transformation happens. That's where the magic lives. So be patient, dear friend, with life, with others, with yourself. Be patient with the process, the timing, the unfolding. Be patient with the mysteries, the uncertainties, the unknowns. Your life is not a problem to be solved, but a garden to be tended. And gardens require patience. They require trust in timing you don't control. They require faith in processes you can't see. They require love that continues through all seasons. That's what patience really is. Love in the dimension of time. Love that waits. Love that trusts. Love that continues. Love that knows that everything is unfolding perfectly, even when, especially when, it doesn't look that way. So, love your life by being patient with it. Love others by being patient with them. Love yourself by being patient with your own becoming. And know this: every moment of patience is a victory. Every choice to trust rather than force is a triumph. Every second of allowing rather than demanding is a step toward the life that's waiting for you. The life that's been waiting for you to be patient enough to receive it. It's coming. Everything you need is coming. In perfect time, in perfect order, in perfect measure. All you have to do is what the seed does. Stay planted. Keep growing. Trust the intelligence of your own becoming. That's patience. That's power. That's peace. That's life itself, teaching you its deepest secret. Everything beautiful takes time, and the time it takes is part of the beauty. Now you know. Now you understand. Now you can begin the real practice. Not the practice of waiting, but the practice of trusting. Not the practice of endurance, but the practice of allowing. Not the practice of patience as suffering, but patience as wisdom. The seed has become the teacher. You've learned what it knows. Now, go and grow with the patience of all living things, knowing that your season is coming, your harvest is preparing, your time is approaching. It will be worth the wait. It always is for those who understand the sacred art of patience.